Meeting. We're going to call it to order at 19:25 hours. This is on a live Zoom broadcast as well, and it gives the opportunity to the community to watch as we're going along. Thank you all for your patience. We're starting a little bit late. The closed session ran a little bit long. Again, this is the November 15th, and it is our regular board meeting. Be advised, these meetings are televised, and you can also watch them after the fact. They're on Channel 28, Wednesday and Saturday evenings, and on Monday, Friday, and Saturday mornings. We're going to start this evening, and I believe we have some folks from some kids here from Junction, and they're going to lead us in our pledge to start off. It's up there. And we'll go on your cue.
Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I mentioned a couple of times we're coming in from the closed session, and anything, all the actions we take in closed session we'll report out. And so I would begin with Trustee Guzman.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President. In closed session, we received information pertaining to the recommended stipulated expulsion of student E. Based upon that information, I move that we approve the staff recommendation for this stipulated expulsion of student E.
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Trustee Guzman in support of the stipulated agreement, and that has been seconded by Trustee Prusso. Madam Clerk, if you'd call the roll.
Trustee Guzman?
Aye.
Trustee White?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Trustee Wong?
Aye.
President Bueno?
Aye, and that motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And Trustee Wong?
Mr. President, in closed session, we received information pertaining to the recommended stipulated expulsion of student D. Based upon that information, I move that we approve the staff recommendation for the stipulated expulsion of student D.
Do we have a second?
Second.
So we have a motion by Trustee Wong in support of the agreement, and it's been seconded by Trustee White. Any discussion on the motion? Madam Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Myself, aye. Trustee Wong?
Aye.
Trustee Guzman?
Aye.
Trustee White?
Aye.
President Bueno?
Aye. That motion carries unanimously. And I believe, Clerk Prusso, you have something?
I do. In closed session, by a vote of 5-0, the board approved the recommendation for the release of a temporary certificated employee, Teacher A.
Thank you very much. And I just want to cover before we go a whole bunch of, we have, obviously it's a kind of a packed house. There's a lot of folks here and you're all very welcome. If we were to have to leave, part of the housekeeping is there's an exit in the back. There's one over there. There's one on the side behind the gentleman here. Yeah, there you go, Mrs. Gladden. And then actually, and obviously through this way. If during the meeting anyone has to go use a restroom or make a phone call or something, you can go right out and the restrooms are right across the lobby. All righty. Again, this is the regular meeting of the Board of Education for the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District, and our primary focus here is on the education of students within the jurisdiction of this agency. So during the meeting, you, our members of the public, will have the opportunity to share information, voice concerns, share ideas regarding matters within our jurisdiction. So during our discussion of each agenda item, there will be a time for you to have the opportunity to speak to that item. If the item is not on the agenda, we ask that you fill out a tan speaker card, have a couple here. And when that comes up under communication from the public, we'll call you up in no particular order. And we ask the little timer will come on up there and you'll see it. And you get 3 minutes and you're allowed to please speak once. And we ask everyone to be, polite and so that we can actually hear because we want to hear all the comments. And I'll make sure that your microphone's on and we'll start the timer once you're familiar and the mic's on and we can hear everything. If people happen to be in agreement with who's talking, please, you can just put your hand up and we can all see that and the camera can see that so that we don't lose any of the context of what people are trying to communicate. If it's something is on the agenda, please fill out a blue speaker card like one of these And the same process, 3 minutes. When you get around 30 seconds, the little timer will pop up, and you can kind of wrap it up, and that way we don't have to remind you. Again, these meetings are televised. They're on Channel 28, and Wednesday and Saturday evening it's at 7 p.m. Monday mornings are at 10 a.m. Friday and Saturday mornings are at 9 a.m. And I believe you can also get them on the internet as well. Moving into section 4 of the agenda, I'd ask our superintendent, Mr. Van Schack, if there's any changes to the agenda this evening.
Mr. President, there is not.
All righty, and maybe we can go right into our recognitions. We look forward to those.
All right, it's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Helen Gladden forward. She's going to introduce some of our outstanding students from Livermore High School.
All righty.
I never get this right. Is it working? Oh,
Yes, we have the
that's
red
first.
lights on.
That's the first time. Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening, President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Van Schack, and Cabinet. I'm Helen Gladden, and I have the honor of being the principal of Livermore High School. Tonight, I wish to recognize our outstanding Honors Symphonic Band and Honors Chamber Orchestra. We have student representatives with us tonight from both of these two outstanding groups. I've asked them to come up and stand before the board so I can brag about them a bit. So first I'm going to introduce them. And these are just representatives, of course. We could have brought in the entire band, but there would have been no room. So the symphonic band members that are with us, and raise your hand when I call your name. Cameron Deveros, Samuel Friedman, Henry Gleason, Ryan Kennedy, Aiden Raj, and Zachary Smithson. Zachary here? Okay, and then from our chamber orchestra, Joyetta Dubois, Jasmine Jara, Claire Phillips, Anna Tang, and Anella Zulo. Okay, so let me brag about them a bit. The Livermore High School Instrumental Music Program has an impressive and continuous streak of honors and performance opportunities for students, especially for those in the Honors Chamber Orchestra and the Honors Symphonic Band. Most recently, the Symphonic Band placed first in their division and second overall out of 20 high school wind bands competing in the Foothill Band Review. And both ensembles delighted those in attendance at their October 2022 LHS Fall Showcase. Both the Symphonic Band and the Chamber Orchestra are poised to have eventful winter and spring performance seasons, culminating with performance at Carnegie Hall in New York City. I want to repeat, Carnegie Hall in New York City. That will happen in April, and it will be for the National Band and Orchestra Festival. This honor, bestowed upon a select few, was earned by both ensembles receiving the highest ranking adjudicator awards at a music festival in Anaheim last spring. In the words of our LHS instrumental music director, who, by the way, is not here tonight because he and his wife are celebrating the birth of their second child. He would love to be here, but there's a baby, so. In his words, I'm thrilled the students have earned this opportunity to perform at the historic Carnegie Hall. It is an experience that they will hold on to and take pride in sharing about for the rest of their lives, and I believe that's true. Leading up to their Carnegie Hall debuts, the Chamber Orchestra will participate as featured performers in the 2023 California All-State Music Education Conference in February in Fresno. Additionally, the Symphonic Band earned an invitation to the Music for All National Band and Orchestra Invitational at Sonoma State University in March. And the Chamber Orchestra was selected as one of only 5 California high school orchestras to perform at the state CMEA Band and Orchestra Festival, also at Sonoma State University in April. I wish to congratulate our Chamber Orchestra, Symphonic Band, and Mr. Enright himself for your outstanding work. We're so very proud of you. And while you work your way around to get handshakes, we are going to show some films of you actually in action.
Oh, that's cool. All righty. If you guys come right around. wish I had your guys' time. That's cool. Yeah.
After the instrumental, it'll be over. Very, very, very difficult act to follow, but we have just the person to do that. And I'd like to now introduce.
I'm
go
going to
ahead.
have, just for those who are, like, we have some people out in the lobby, feel free, you guys can fill in. We have seats that folks are going to, yeah, let's get a few folks sitting down.
Good call.
All right.
All right, I will invite Ms. Jeanette Garza, the outstanding principal from Junction, and her team, going to join her, and they're going to represent, or they're going to recognize some outstanding students from Junction.
Your light's not on. For some reason, just hit the little button. There you go. You're on.
Good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Van Schack, and cabinet members. I'm Jeanette Garza, proud principal of Junction Avenue K-8. Here with me to celebrate these exceptional students are Vice Principals Danielle Mackey and Jeremy Vilkins. I would like to introduce to you, a couple of them are ill, so aren't here, but still, Emma Carroll, Ryan Moore, Ryan Perez, Audrey Rusa, Scarlett Siltz, Rhiannon Stewart, Analia Teles Casanova. Okay? These students were all nominated by several teachers for being incredibly respectful, thoughtful, kind, hardworking, positive, and creative. Teachers commented on what great role models and peer mentors each of these students are. Without fanfare, they do not hesitate to help others. They are genuine, and each in their own unique way make Junction a better place for all. These students stand out among many great students, and Junction is very proud to recognize the wonderful human beings they are. Please help us take a moment to applaud them all.
Bulldogs, huh? Thank you. Thank you. Go Bulldog pride. Thank you. Thank you. Nicely done. Thank you. I'd invite some of the folks, as our folks go out and they have a little photo op, for those folks who would like to come in from there, from out in the lobby, and there's maybe 15 seats up in the front, so we can kind of fill them in, get some folks, less folks sitting outside. All righty. The next one is our student board member reports. And what this is an opportunity for representatives from each of our comprehensive high schools, Granada and Livermore, to come in and kind of give us an update on spirit, things that are going on, scheduled events, community involvement. This evening, we're going to start with Loudon Philbrick from Granada High School.
Ooh, okay. Good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Van Schack, and cabinet. The first trimester at Granada High is coming to an end with only this week remaining. Students are beginning to study for their upcoming finals, which will take place this Thursday and Friday. As most of us know, the rivalry football game between Livermore High took place on November 4th, but leading up to the game, Granada had a spirit week and a rally to get students excited for the game. On Monday, students dressed up in their Halloween costumes. Tuesday was ties versus tie-dye. Wednesday was bikers versus surfers. Thursday was dress to impress versus dress to rest. And finally, Friday was black and gold. On Halloween, a costume contest was held in the quad during lunch, where students could show off their costumes. And that Friday was the annual rivalry rally, where students are encouraged to attend the game later that day. The rally featured a wrestling match between the Matador and the Cowboy, as well as chariot races. Performances from dance team, cheer, hip hop club, and color guard were also featured in the rally. As we all know, Granada hosted the rivalry game this year. Both the freshman and JV teams won their games against Livermore. However, the varsity team was unable to secure the victory against Livermore. However, it was a hard-fought battle. And both teams should be proud of their performances. November 9th was the athlete breakfast. Fall sports athletes are able to eat a free breakfast provided by leadership. Granada's play, Everybody, was performed last week. I would also like to shine light on our cross-country team, which dominated the league meet, becoming e-ball champions at every level of competition. Our girls team has won their 6th e-ball championship in a row, and Roland Ruckman Barnes took first place in the varsity race. Congratulations to our cross-country team. Coach Noel Matern has been selected as the North Coast section representative for representative for the NFHS California State Coach of the Year Award in the sport of girls cross country for the 2021-2022 school year. The NCS championships are this Saturday. It's been a great first trimester, but remember, stay classy, Granada.
Thank you very much. And now for Livermore High School, Mackenzie Weary.
Good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Van Schack, Cabinet, and community. As Livermore High's first trimester of the 2022-2023 school year comes to an end, we reflect gratefully on the events of the last couple of months and the success we are seeing in this year's students. Our latest and greatest accomplishment has to be our varsity football team securing a 42-28 win against Granada at the November 4th football game. Our Cowboys are now city champs for the year, and we're able to take home the helmet trophy to our new gym. Some might attribute the win to our fabulous rival rally, which took place during school on Friday to prepare students for the game. The rally included important information on how to stay classy during the game. The rally included a performance by the LHS drumline, some great games put on by our Spirit and Rally Leadership Committee, and a hype video created by one of our video students, Jillian Winslow. Jillian is known for her weekly hype videos of all the LHS Friday night festivities. This last week, our football team drove out to Roanoke Park to play against Rancho Cotati High School. Unfortunately, the Cowboys lost, meaning that the varsity season is over for the year. LHS is very proud of our boys for all their hard work and dedication to having an amazing season. Looking back, Livermore High School had a spooktacular Halloween. We had lots of students dress up on that Monday and even had a haunted hallway, which our principal, Ms. Gladden, participated in and even said was pretty spooky. On the topic of changing seasons, our girls and boys water polo teams, girls volleyball team, sideline cheer team, girls golf, tennis, and cross-country teams just ended their season. But that means that winter sports like girls basketball and boys basketball, girls and boys soccer, wrestling are just beginning. We look forward to seeing what LHS athletes can do this winter. Recently, our LHS String Orchestra, Symphonic Band, and Chamber Orchestra performed at LHS, showing how musically talented our Cowboy Nation can be. This week, our Cowboys will be taking on finals to finalize their trimester 1 grades, so let's wish them good luck on this Thursday and Friday. As a reminder, Cowboy Nation encourages everyone to embrace that today is a great day to be a Cowboy. Thank you.
Thank you both. All right, next section is the opportunity for our employee associations, have their elected leadership to come up and let us know what's going on within their respective leaderships. First up this evening is LEA, Livermore Education Association, and their president, Amy Thompson. Good evening.
Good evening, Board President Bueno, Superintendent Van Schack, members of the Board and Cabinet. I'm Amy Thompson, President of the Livermore Education Association, representing teachers, nurses, counselors, psychologists, speech pathologists, and teachers on special assignment. We are here tonight to share that we are both concerned and hopeful. We are concerned for the impact the teacher shortage is having on our students and on our teachers. The current year began with over 30 unfilled LEA positions, having a negative impact on students who spent weeks or months in classrooms without an assigned teacher. This also had a negative impact on teachers who have had to fill in the gaps, providing lesson plans and other supports. The additional demands on teachers is creating stress and burnout. This year, the stress level is different. The feel to this year is different. Since October, I have received at least one call a week from a member asking how they can resign. Last week, I received 3 of those calls. This week's call has already come in. It happened yesterday afternoon. Our members who have been here for their whole careers are actually pulling up salary schedules in other districts to compare compensation packages. They're looking at job postings. These are people who have never looked before. They are die-hard Livermore teachers, and they're looking at their possibilities. Teachers from other districts are actively recruiting our teachers, sharing that they've been able to hire someone this year, but they're not really happy with the performance. You should look at our salary schedule, check it out, and see if you want to move. These things have never happened before. We are more concerned about what will happen next year with a compensation package that is below average for our area. How many new teachers will we be able to attract to fill the positions of retiring teachers? How many of our current teachers will seek employment in surrounding districts where the compensation package is better? Will we start the year short 100 people next year? We are hopeful that the board has given direction during closed session tonight to improve the compensation offer provided by the district, to begin to address the issue and make Livermore more attractive so that we can hire new teachers and keep the teachers we currently have. We appreciate the offer of a one-time 3% off-schedule bonus. This would be nice for holiday shopping, but it doesn't address the real concern. We need to add ongoing compensation to the 22-23 salary schedule now. The time to act is now. This is urgent. We have a job fair November 30th. Regular hiring season for next year is right around the corner. Livermore students deserve the best. This includes actual teachers in the classrooms. We are hopeful that you will accept the invitation to stand with us in supporting students by doing what it takes to attract and retain teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Okay, our next, I'm not sure if, because we have a lot of folks here, is Stephanie Wagner. She's our CSEA pres. If she's here. Oh, she is. Nine point. Oh, hello. Well, just give me 30 seconds so you're not interrupted. All righty. That's fine. Thank you.
Good evening, President Board Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Van Schack, and Cabinet, and members of the board. I'm here tonight to talk about CSCA, California School Employee Association. We are a group of employees for the LVJUSD that rarely gets mentioned, but does a lot of work. Our members are in the classroom, in the offices, outside watching students. We order product, we pay for product, pay for the utilities, do the work to get new employees into the district. We collect data, work with staff at schools for ASB, help schools with budgets, and with retirees for our district. We make sure that everyone gets paid on time. I'd say that's the most important one. But we do so much more. I have been in negotiations for years, and we have been told time and time again that we are equal to everyone else in the district. We recently were offered a 3% one-time compensation, and looking at it initially, I thought it was very generous of the district until I started to calculate the money that my members would be getting versus what management would get. The money was not based on criteria. It has nothing to do with performance, classification, or ability. It is strictly a one-time compensation. Why does the management get so much more? These are all rough averages, middle-of-the-road salaries. These are averages, which does not include bachelor's, master's, longevity, or any other add-ons that help boost your pay. CSCA will on average make $1,764. CSCA on average, SEIU on average will make $1,753. LEA will make $2,628. CMC will make on average $3,200. Classified leadership will make on average $4,658. Certificated leadership will make roughly $4,485. The best average I could find for the superintendent's office is currently $7,466. This is old data because I couldn't locate more recent salaries, and that is why I'm not in IT. The reason why I'm bringing this up is that it is a steep jump from my members to other district employees. I want to ask the board as well as cabinet to think about these things when offering a percentage to bargaining units. If we are truly equal, it should be equal across the board. We work hard, and we deserve to be treated equally to everyone else. I know this wasn't to say that management deserves more than the classified employees, and I believe that this is just how we've done it in the past. But someone recently just said in a staff meeting, just because that's how we've always done it doesn't mean that's how we always have to continue to do it in the future. And I agree with that statement. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. And I'm not sure if Kirsty Governor's here. I don't see. No, she's SEIU. And then Lily Lopez with confidentials. I didn't see Lily. So that's our elected leadership. We're going to move into section 8, and the first one is 8.1. This is audience communication. And communication from the public is a time for our public to comment in writing or verbally on any item that is not on the agenda. Now, we, the board, in this instance, we may listen to the comment, and we can ask staff clarifying questions, but we can neither discuss nor take action at this meeting on topics that are not on the agenda, and this is all in accordance with the Brown Act. So if someone would like to speak to something that's not on this evening's agenda, and I do have a few tan speaker cards, again, I'd reiterate, there's the 3-minute, the little timer will pop up. You'll see it on some of the adjacent flat screens. And if folks are in agreement with what someone else is saying, we can just simply raise our hands, and the camera picks that up, and so it doesn't disrupt from the comments that are being made. So with that being said, I would ask our first speaker, Alex Izares, to come up. You here? Yep. No, not yet. Hit the button right in the center. There you go.
There we go.
Perfect.
Good evening, board. Mr. Van Schack, I sent an email yesterday about school safety concerns. I do hope I hear back from you very soon, as I believe classroom doors not being able to shut and lock properly is quite concerning, especially with safety being a top priority. I hope we can get this resolved soon. I know the topic of books will be discussed in 9.1, but I'd like to quickly say, the parents speaking out do not want books banned. We want age-appropriate books in our children's libraries. The fact that the board seems to have no problem with these books is what really gets me. These books are not all LGBTQ related, only one is, and the fact of the matter is they are not appropriate for middle school children. Last meeting, many comments were made after a parent directly asked the Christensen principal about these books. It blows my mind that the people of Livermore haven't woken up to vote you off of this board, Mr. Bueno, because you have made it very clear you do not care about parents. You don't care about their concerns for children. You do not care about the after effects of children having these books in their hands. And honestly, the books being the issue is the tip of the iceberg. Many are awakening to the fact that this board protects the teachers' union and the people in the district over the children. You went on in the last board meeting about many things being under attack in this country, including women, and your teachers won't be attacked. And while I agree a teacher should never be attacked, our teachers have done an amazing job in our district. But first of all, asking for some answers regarding these books isn't an attack. Secondly, you speak about women being attacked as if you don't put the mothers who come up here to speak for their children down over and over again. You have attacked mothers with passive-aggressive comments, putting us down for standing up for our children. I'll say this again, this isn't fun for us. Coming to board meetings to do this is not fun. But when it comes to our children, well, you're going to meet a whole different kind of parent, because the parents I know here tonight will not back down, and they will not quit fighting for our children. Instead of going on rants about parents who dare come up and speak, the parents who fight for children and the parents who will not back down, do something to protect our children from these books. Thank you.
And our next speaker is Emily Wilson.
It's still on, okay.
It is.
Good evening, Board President Bueno, board members, Superintendent Van Schack, Cabinet, and community. My name is Emily Wilson, and I went to elementary, middle, and high school in our district. So many teachers in our district impacted my life positively and helped me prepare for college in the adult world. Many of them were in this room tonight. I would hate to see us lose such valuable members of our staff because our district cannot compete with increasing rent and housing costs and nearby districts' salaries. Our teachers deserve to live where they work, and right now that is a struggle for so many. My mom is an example of this, as she has been a special education teacher at Granada for the last 8 years. She is a single income household and struggles to cover all of her bills while working 10 to 12-hour days consistently. She stays here because she believes in our students, schools, and this district, but living this way is not sustainable. Our teachers can easily go 10 minutes down the road to work for a higher salary that is more sustainable to live on. We need to prioritize our teachers and staff and keep them in our schools. They have given this district so much, especially in the past few years, and we need to show them that they are worth more than burnout, increased stress, and not being able to afford to live here. If we want to be more inclusive and diverse with our hiring, we need to pay our staff more. Thank you again for your time.
Okay. All righty. And our next speaker is Jason Dowden.
Still on?
Yes, it is.
Awesome. Good evening. My name is Jason Dowden. I am a campus supervisor at Granada High School. Over the last year and a half, I have also been the strength and conditioning coach, summers included. And I'm here tonight just to kind of shed some light on what we've been doing and highlight some accomplishments and hopefully encourage the board to make it a full-time position. A little history, I came up with this plan after watching several teams enter the weight room, and I was basically horrified by what I was looking at. The vast majority of coaches want to coach their sport, which makes perfect sense, yet they want to get their teams into the weight room as well. Unfortunately, they don't know what they're doing when they get into the weight room. So they'll get in there, not much instruction, and kind of tell them, with a program that they downloaded, have at it. This sounds silly, does it not? We are in education. We know the importance of instruction on development. Weight training is no different. It takes practice, repetition, instruction. And this is kind of what we've implemented at Granada. Instruction first, weights after. My program works because it is the basics of weight training. Foundational strength through proper movements. This ensures kids stay healthy not only in the weight room, but during competition. So what have we been doing? All Granada students were able to sign up for training, whether they were an athlete or not. So this opened the door to many students that would have never had the opportunity to see the weight room without this program. We split groups up by male and female. I can't tell you how many girls came up to me at some point and told me they were happy with how we implemented this because it just made them way more comfortable on when they trained. It's a little side note. The amount of girls that actually signed up for this program is not only astonishing and surprising, it's awesome, and it's something that we can build off of. As students improved, they were moved into an advanced group so they can continue their progress. We never stayed stagnant, right? Once they could handle better stuff, we ended up moving them up in the program. For piecing this together, as we went last year, it was wildly successful, far beyond my expectations, and it's only year one. Think of where this program can go if we actually invested in it. I'm kind of running out of time here, but I wanted to say this is an opportunity for Livermore to be revolutionary when it comes to this in public schooling. Private schools have this. The data clearly shows the positive effects of weight training, and we are so much more knowledgeable than we were just 20 years ago. It is time to implement it. I think I had 20 seconds left. I know many people are asking for funds to be spent in various areas. However, this is something where we can take our level of commitment to students to a whole new level, drastically change the lives of students well beyond their high school careers. Something to think about. Thank you for your consideration.
That's your time. And just, if you'd like, if you had any written material, just, you can always submit that afterwards and address it to Mr. Van Schack, and that way we would get it.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, that concludes our audience comment.
Mr. President, can I ask a question? Me?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Or I don't know if anyone has the answer. I would love to get clarification on whether that strength training is an extracurricular activity. Is it class credit? Is it part of PE? Like,
We were doing it as an extracurricular after school. Last year we were running from about 3:30 after school until about 10 o'clock at night. We had about 6 different sessions, hour-long blocks, separated again by male and female, and then your skill level.
thank you.
Okay. Moving into 8.2, formal written correspondence. And this is to clarify that formal written correspondence to the Board of Education. We'll acknowledge it if it's received by the board and the superintendent's office by 4 p.m. the day before our meeting. And formal written correspondence received after the cutoff time will generally be heard at the next meeting. So by going to the board electronic communication thing at the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District website, by accessing formal written correspondence to the Board of Education with all fields completed and verified, that'll be treated as formal written correspondence. Now that's clarified, I'd ask our clerk, Ms. Russo, if you'd summarize any correspondence received.
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. We do have one letter of board correspondence from Jeff Saragusa, a Pleasanton community member who is concerned about the current state of education and wants to do anything and everything to protect children who have been indoctrinated and not educated the past 50 years. And that concludes our correspondence.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to move into 9. These are our information discussion items, and I'd ask Mr. Van Schack if you could introduce our first item, please.
Thank you, President Bueno. We will start off our information discussion items tonight with an item that is based upon some questions from a prior board meeting. So I will ask our Assistant Superintendent, Ms. Melissa Thede, to discuss our literature selection process.
Thank you, Superintendent Van Schack and President Bueno, members of the board, cabinet, and community. I'm here to share with you the process that we go through at our school sites when selecting literature for our libraries. This responsibility is typically delegated to our site library staff, definitely under the direction of a principal, although we also invite recommendations from our administrators, our teachers, other staff, parents, and students as well. And materials that are obsolete or no longer appropriate are definitely removed from our libraries. So we utilize a few resources to help us in the selection of literature materials. And I won't read through them all, but they're listed here for you. And these are well established through public library associations as reputable resources to help guide our book selection process. When there is a concern regarding any material in our libraries, we do have a challenge procedure, and parents or guardians are encouraged to first discuss those concerns directly with the teacher or principal. And challenges concerning instructional materials can be accepted from staff members, district residents, or the parents or guardians of students enrolled within the school district. The complaint or challenge process is similar to that for any type of curriculum that we have, and that information is listed on our website. Our next steps, based on heightened concern and interest, is that we are going to review our district-wide library plan. We're going to review and update that plan in collaboration with our library media specialists and our district staff. And eventually that plan, once completed and thoroughly vetted, will be brought back to the board. And I would welcome any questions you may have.
Okay. We do have some audience questions, and so we've got actually quite a few, so we'll do the public comment section. We'll have some folks come up. First is Alex Izares.
So I have copies. You guys can see what I'm looking at. I'm going to read from this book, Queer. This is just one of the books in your guys' library. Now, I understand I should take this up with the principal, but my child does not go to this school. I feel like as the board, you should be aware. You should know what's going on in these schools. The principal and the librarian should absolutely know what's going on in the library. You should know every book that's in the library, and if one is this inappropriate, as these books are that are going to be read, you should do something about it. Touching and rubbing. Genital stimulation can come from any body part. And I just want to say that my face is probably going to turn red because this is very embarrassing to read. If this was about two straight people doing these things, I would still be outraged. I would still not want this read to my child. Genital stimulation can come from any body part. You can use your hands or hips or feet, or you can rub your private parts on someone's thigh, arm, butt, genitals, ankles, wherever. You may stroke his penis, insert fingers into his anus, or insert fingers into her vagina. The latter two may also be considered anal sex and vaginal sex, respectively. You may find yourself making out, getting all hot and heavy, and having an orgasm just from rubbing against each other's bodies. This is for 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds. You may not even have to take your clothes off. It's all sex. It feels really good. And the best part is there is a decreased risk of spreading sexually transmitted infections when all you do is touch and rub. If you are inserting fingers into somewhere, you might consider using a rubber glove to help prevent the spread of diseases like syphilis, which is on the rise against young gay men. Oral sex is when you put your mouth on your partner's genitals. For guys, it's called fellatio, or giving him a blowjob. For girls, it's called cunnilingus, or going down on her. There's no one way for oral sex because everyone likes something different. Using your tongue is usually a good thing. Teeth, not so much. The best person to give you feedback is your partner. Using a condom with guys or dental dam with girls helps during oral sex to prevent the transmission of STIs. This book it promotes the use of masturbation and having sex before a child is even married or in love or knows anything what this is like. This should not be in our schools. This is not sex ed. These are conversations parents should be having with children, with their children. Anal sex. Any kind of penetrating sexual activity involving the anus is typically called anal sex. This can involve penetration with the penis, fingers, or a sex toy. STIs such as HIV and hepatitis B spread more easily through anal sex than via oral sex or rubbing. Be sure to always use a condom and plenty of lubricant when engaging in any kind of anal penetration, as the anus does not lubricate itself. Also, never insert a finger, toy, or penis into any body part after it's been in an anus without thoroughly washing it. The anus has a lot of bacteria. This should not be in our schools. This should not be for children. It should not. I would not have a problem. I would still have the same.
Your time is up, ma'am.
I would still be upset.
Your time is up, ma'am.
I would still be upset if this was two straight people.
Let's just go to the next person. I understand you made your point. Trying to be generous and polite. Thank you. Our next speaker is Luis Gonzalez. Luis Gonzalez? Luis? Okay.
Okay,
Yes, it is.
are you sure?
It's on. Now it's off. It was on. No.
Do it again.
There you go.
Okay, it's back on. I only took up one client, or not one client card, one comment card today, but I do have a couple things I'd like to address, including the fact that behind me are two principals that my kids have gone to their school, Junction and Livermore High School, and I've mentioned before I don't feel safe with them going there. We have Garza, who is at Junction, who doesn't know that the noise curfew is 11 p.m., not 9 p.m. for the 8th grade dance. We already went over this, her and I, together, but
Ma'am, is this
uneducated.
relative to, is this relative, just to understand,
yes.
there's order to the meeting.
Yes, the book.
Right, this is 9.1. So if
Okay.
you have something else, then maybe you could do that under a non-agendized item.
Yeah, I only wanted to take up one card, but
Okay, so this one here is 9.1. Let's stay on point, please.
yes. Okay, so Kathy and the homophobic park incident. In 2006, people in Oregon were asked to vote on a constitutional amendment to ban same-sex marriage. I was doing all I could to fight our rights. I volunteered for my local gay rights organization, canvassed door to door, and put pro-gay marriage signs on lawn and bumper stickers on my car. On Saturday, my partner and I took our dogs to the neighborhood park. When we returned to the car, I found a note on the windshield that said, "Gays go home. This is a straight park." Okay, well, that is homophobic right there. That's not acceptable, and I don't see why people that are in the LGBTQIA community are pushing for a book like this when you are not supposed to be homophobic, transphobic, or anything else like that. At this point, the books that are in the classroom and in the library are unacceptable. Us as parents, we are going through. I have found other books. There's one called Tricks, and it's about 5 teenage kids that go to Vegas that wind up as prostitutes. That's not a book that I would think that would be in the school library, especially when we're talking about education. There's so many things that are going wrong in the school district that I was hoping that we would have some new representation here, but unfortunately, we're going to wind up with the same old, same old. The kids at Livermore High, just so you guys all know, that TikTok that was going around with the rally incident, it was taken down for dangerous acts, and not one of the representatives up here has had a problem with that at all. TikTok has a problem with a dangerous act that was performed at a rally, and not one single one of you guys as a board member has commented, asked a question, or anything. Whatever, I'm done here.
Okay. Our next speaker is, it looks to be Joni Kutchin, or Kuchin? You can correct me, like,
Not the first one to slaughter my name.
I'm sorry? It's just seeing, is it Joni?
It's Joni Kutchin.
Kutchin, okay.
Yeah, that's okay. It's common for people to do. I'm just appalled that some of these books are in the library and the kids have access to this. Just totally inappropriate. It says, "Are you ready? How will you know if you're ready to have sex? Does a giant light bulb go on above your head? Does a loud gong sound in the back of your mind? Unfortunately, no. At least not that we know of. The decision about whether or not that we know of. The decision about whether or not to have sex is heard on how you and your partner feel. Many people don't feel comfortable having sex until they fall in love. That's totally fine. Others want to have sex before then. That's fine too. Some people simply choose to not to have sex, which is also a perfectly valid option. And if you're one of those teens, there's a good chance you feel conflicted when it comes to sex. Sometimes your mind says no, but your body screams yes. Other times your body may not be ready for it, but your mind thinks it's the right thing to do. Well, that's natural. Sex can be confusing, even for older people. If you can wait until both your body and your mind agree on the matter, you'll probably be happier for it in the long run. Most important, know the risks and protect yourself. More on that later in this chapter. And don't ever feel pressured to do anything you don't want to do. You own your own comfort zone. It's part of what makes you special and unique. Stick to your standards, never compromise, just to please anyone else, even your boyfriend, girlfriend, or partner. Anyway, finally, if you're under the age of 18, you want to look up the legal age, you could just go ahead and do that. You can just do whatever you want to as far as it goes. About having sex with someone the same age as you or having sex with someone over 18. It's just, as a parent, as a grandparent, it's just sad that this is being given to access for middle school kids to be able to have. That should be between, if you have a sex education class, health or whatever at school, or between parents and their kids, so that you are there should be a perspective of giving them morals and values along with it, because it will have a great effect on their lives as they age and on its choices that they're making that they're probably too young to make. And I think we need to be more conscientious and care more deeply for our kids. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Our next speaker is Ryan Lawson.
Is it on?
It is.
All right. So those passages were rather tame compared to the stuff that I'm getting ready to read here. So this is another book that was found in one of our middle schools titled Punkzilla. And so a brief synopsis of this book is it contains drug and alcohol abuse, prostitution involving a teen, cat molestation, using a pencil, sexually explicit scenes with a discussion of hand jobs and blowjobs, pedophilia, domestic abuse, prolific profanity, teenage criminal behavior, and violence. I'm 32 years old, and this is gonna make me turn red because it's just so embarrassing and so vulgar. I just can't believe that middle schoolers are being allowed to have access to something like this. So now I'm gonna go ahead and read what this says here. And Branson made around $30 every Sunday. Once we made 57, and after we paid our Washington house rent, which was $24.50 when we went, and got hand jobs from Bucktooth Jenny. Bucktooth Jenny's real name is Jennifer Norris, but everyone calls her Bucktooth Jenny because she has the buckest teeth I have ever seen. But she has curly black hair and big brown eyes and nice creamy skin, and she doesn't have no sores on her mouth and nothing, and she looks right at you when she does you. One time she made me come so hard I shouted, "I'm a crime thriller and a dirty cop killer." I swear I shouted that pee, and even though when I come, nothing shoots out, I still get all those feelings in my body, like I'm getting electrocuted and tickled with a feather, and I'm falling backwards all at the same time. Bucktooth Jenny has a nice body too, which makes up for her teeth, and she'll sometimes take her shirt off so you can stare at her titties while she does you. And shit, listen to this. She told us she was going to pose naked for this website, lostgirlslovelosers.com. But Branson freaked out on her because she's obviously in love. She was going to make like $300 posing for that website too. It's just sickening. I just can't believe that an adult would allow a child to have access to something like this. And so I just, I plead with everyone to, if you have an effect, please get this out of the schools and anything like it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Nicole Dilkeen-10. Dilkeen-10.
I would like to thank the district for finally addressing so many parents' concerns about how text is chosen for our school libraries. Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl is a literature choice made for Christensen Middle School Library. Please allow me to read to you from page 53. Hey, Earl, I can't watch Alphaville today. Why the hell not? I'm sorry, man. I have to hang with this girl from synagogue. What? Are you gonna eat her pussy? Earl can be sort of profane sometimes. He's actually mellowed out a lot since his middle school days, believe it or not. Back in middle school, he would have asked this much and more in a violent and horrible way. Yeah, Earl, I'm going to eat her pussy. Yeah? Yeah. Do you even know how to eat pussy? Not really. Papa Gaines never sat you down and said, son, one day you're going to have to eat the pussy. No, but he did teach me how to eat a butthole. When Earl is in full-on gross out mode, you have to play along or you'll feel stupid. God bless that man. Yep, I would teach you some pussy-eating technique, but it's a little complicated. Well, that's a shame. I would need some diagrams and whatnot. Well, tonight you might have to draw some up. Son, I don't have time for that. I've got like 20 pussies over here and I need to eat. Is that right? I'm on a pussy deadline. You've got 20 vaginas all lined up in a row. Do you really feel that this is age-appropriate material for a middle school? I understand that some people say this book talks about adolescent grief, which is an important topic. But do you mean to tell me that out of the thousands of books that we have to choose from to educate the kids on this topic, you choose me and Earl and the Dying Girl as the best offer? They couldn't find something without this graphic sexual text. Senator Tim Scott recently stated we are putting parents back in charge of education. Representative Eric Swalwell, who endorsed one of your board members, tweeted back, when did we stop trusting experts? This is so stupid. I can answer this. We stopped trusting people who called themselves experts when they started giving our children access to this pornographic text. 16,000 hours. This is how many hours the government school will spend with our children from kindergarten to 12th grade. What other similar text and stories are our children being given access to during all of these hours? Parents have entrusted their most precious gifts to you. They have trusted the public school system to teach their kids reading, writing, and arithmetic, and instead the school system has taken that task and perverted it, crushing the trust that parents once put in it. I don't know any context in which a book discussing eating pussy should be read by a middle school student. Please let me remind you, middle school is 11 to 14 years old. It dismays and concerns me that our Livermore School Board is neither concerned or offended by what books are being found in their libraries. Thank you.
And our next is Alexander Pepper.
Thank you, President Bueno. Is this on?
Yes, it is.
Good evening, educators, school board members, students, and parents. I address the board today in order to suggest that in future decisions regarding the literature selection process, more emphasis be placed on the diversity, relevancy, and broadness of content. I suggest formally that we, in future decisions, include books regarding varying perspectives, such as those from minorities and minority authors. I find these perspectives to be incredibly important to myself, and in talking to my peers as well as educators, in my discussions, I found that the majority agree with me on this fact. I'm appalled by the constant harassment of the school board in the worry about books regarding specifically LGBTQ subjects, and I would rather we push instead for more inclusion of books, not necessarily regarding sexual content, but rather these important topics such as tolerance. I find these books incredibly important, and in reading some of them, I myself have been incredibly moved towards the problems of my compatriots, and I believe that books such as Long Way Down and The Kite Runner especially are ones that we should model our decision-making process off of, as their messages continue and will continue to be relevant in the future. As I've said, I've spoken with many teachers and peers at my school and believe that these books are incredibly important in the instruction of students, and I believe that students and myself would rather check out a book regarding the topics of LGBTQ rights, Black rights, and the minorities in our community rather than anything regarding sexual content. And the point of us checking out these books is not the emphasis on the sexual content, but rather on the issues regarding these members of our community and the members of our community throughout the nation. Before I yield my time, I would like to reiterate my support for the LEA today, and I yield my time to the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next, I hear you. Okay. Our next is, now this one may have got misplaced because it didn't have a section, so I put it in here because it was a blue card with the other blue cards. It says Liz. Who's a parent? Okay. I don't have your last name, so I didn't.
I didn't write it down.
Okay.
It wasn't necessarily about book selection. It was around the teacher shortage. I just wanted to share that.
So we'll just make an exception because it's my mistake.
Sorry, if I can come back, I can go sit down, come back if you'd prefer.
No, is it under a different agendized item, or was this meant to be in the non-agendized?
It might have meant to been in the non-agendized item. I didn't see I couldn't find the right area of the agenda, so I can come back during non-agendized.
We've closed that. If there's no objection, it's my mistake. It's just it was a blue card. Is that okay? Okay, so please continue.
Probably my mistake. This is my first board meeting. I've never been, didn't know what cards, I didn't know there was color coding.
We'll go ahead.
I just wanted to share my experience. My daughter's having her first or second, she went to TK last year and is in kindergarten this year at Junction School. And due to the teacher shortage, I mean, I understand that there's one happening across the nation, but due to the local teacher shortage, she still doesn't have a permanent teacher. It's not just her, obviously. There's also 25 other students in that classroom. And there's a hybrid sort of idea of how they're going to do it, but there's still no end in sight to it. And it's quite disappointing and disheartening that a bunch of 5-year-old children are being left to have a very inconsistent adult with them for the entirety of the year.
Take your time.
And I just wish that there was some more proactive and in front of communication happening from the school board to the school to the parents, and there's not. And it's a really rough way to start your education experience. And all kids need consistency, but especially young kids. And so the fact that there's not even an opportunity to do like an emergency credential, I don't know how many emergency credentials are left in the district at this point because that information isn't shared with us. But I don't know like what the options are. It's just like, well, we're gonna do this like extended teacher for 60 days and we'll see what happens then. They haven't had a teacher since last May. We're just hoping for a unicorn to fall from the sky that's gonna fit perfectly for that school. Like, it doesn't seem like a very well thought out thing. So that's it, thank you.
If you could, ma'am, if there's any details to it, you know, the school and the class, if you could forward that to Mr. Van Schack so that he could follow up with us.
Yeah, the junction.
Okay, but if you could send it to him, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Can I,
We can't interact, 'cause it's a non-agendized item. That's why I was asking for any follow-up.
Can I, sorry, I just, again.
Okay. All right, and our next speaker is Emily on this item on the 9.1, Emily Wilson.
Hello again, Board President Bueno, Board Trustees, Superintendent Van Schack, Cabinet, and Community. I wanted to thank you all for taking the time to educate the community on how literature is selected for our schools. As a member of the LGBTQ community, I hope we continue to move toward progress and not regression. If the ballots from our recent election have shown anything, it's that some of the loudest folks in this that speak at the meetings are not the majority and do not represent how this community actually feels. So I want us to remember that. And if kids want to look at sexual content, the internet is a really scary place. And unfortunately, when I was in our schools, we didn't have books that I could go to. So I went to the internet, and sometimes that wasn't very good either. And I'll be sharing some of the same sentiments I made at the last meeting that highlight why queer representation and education are so important. According to a national study done by the Trevor Project, LGBTQ youth are more than 4 times as likely to attempt suicide than their peers. In particular, Black, transgender, and non-binary youth report disproportionate rates of suicide, with 59% seriously considering suicide and more than 1 in 4, 26%, attempting suicide in the past year. LGBTQ youth who found their school and home to be LGBTQ affirming reported lower rates of attempting suicide. Again, when we talk about protecting our LGBTQ students, we are talking about protecting their lives. It's my hope that our current and future board trustees continue to protect and provide a safe space for our LGBTQ students in as many ways as we can. Allowing them to be represented in books is one step in the right direction. Let's keep moving forward together. Thank you.
Okay. We see that, thanks. Our next is Joanne Morrison.
Good evening, President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Van Schack, and Cabinet. With respect to literary selection, I found some interesting information from the American Library Association. They have established a library bill of rights that applies to minors as well as adults. Article 5 of the Library Bill of Rights states, "A person's right to use a library should not be denied or abridged because of origin, age, background, or views." Children and young adults unquestionably possess First Amendment rights, including the right to receive information through the library in print, sound, images, data, social media, online applications, games, technologies, programming, and other formats. And that's from a 2011 Supreme Court case, Brown versus Entertainment Merchants Association. Further, constitutionally protected speech cannot be suppressed solely to protect children or young adults from ideas or images a legislative body believes to be unsuitable for them. That's from a 1975 Supreme Court case, Erznosnik versus the City of Jacksonville. Libraries and their library governing bodies should not resort to age restrictions in an effort to avoid actual or anticipated objections, because only a court of law can determine whether or not content is constitutionally protected. Article 7 of the Library Bill of Rights states all people, regardless of origin, age, background, or views, possess a right to privacy and confidentiality in their library use. This includes students and minors who have a right to be free from any unreasonable intrusion into or surveillance of their lawful library use. The association states libraries and their governing bodies cannot assume the role of parents or the functions of parental authority in the private relationship between parent and child. Parents and guardians who do not want their children to have access to specific library services, materials, or facilities should so advise their own children. Libraries and library governing bodies should not use rating systems to inhibit a minor's access to materials. Libraries and their governing bodies must uphold this principle. Lack of access to information can be harmful to minors. Thank you.
Appreciate it. I'd welcome you also to send anything you have in writing on that, ma'am, to Mr. Van Schack so that we could have it as a reference. Okay, our next is Catherine Koziemski.
Good evening, Superintendent Van Schack, President Bueno, Board, Cabinet, and Community. I'm Catherine Koziemski, a mother of 3 in Livermore schools. At the last board meeting, some spoke their concerns about books in our school libraries. At one point, I'm sure you all remember, a couple of members of the public were yelling at a school principal and you members of the board and staff because they didn't feel their questions were being answered to their satisfaction. I am open to these discussions, and knowing many of you on the board, I know you are also open to these difficult conversations about what books and types of books are relevant for different ages and grades. But it's impossible to have these discussions when people are screaming from a place of moral outrage and misinformation. It's like we're all speaking a different language, and Livermore has become a microcosm of what is happening nationally. I can tell by their passion that they really do believe they are speaking up for what they feel is good and right for children. I am also speaking up for what I feel is good and right for children. And the current results of the school board election reveal that the community is not behind these voices. We now have evidence that this is a vocal minority. The thing is, most of the books I hear being targeted are specifically intended for LGBT plus students. I've heard it argued that these books are inappropriate for this age group. But arguing if a book is appropriate for a particular age group is missing the point. The books in our school libraries need to be relevant to the experiences of our students. The library is a reflection of the students Livermore serves. Students come from a variety of racial and economic backgrounds with variable home situations. Not every student has a safe person in their life to ask these tough questions. It is particularly for this reason that students need books that, yes, cover really tough material, because they need to see themselves and others different from them reflected in a book. In 2019, the Journal of Adolescent Health published a study that shows that almost a quarter of 12 to 14-year-olds, middle school students, the ones that everyone is so concerned about, who died by suicide were LGBTQ plus children. The study shows LGBTQ plus youth are more predisposed to suicide than their heterosexual and cisgender peers. Positive, realistic portrayals of gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and queer characters, as well as accurate information about what it means to be LGBTQ+, can help curb these statistics. Yes, these are tough topics, and I know as a parent, these are uncomfortable conversations. But I have found over the years as a parent and in my former life as a religious studies high school teacher, as an adult being uncomfortable or even, yes, offended does not mean a child does not have the need to understand sexuality and gender identity. Please don't ignore the real needs of Livermore students in order to appease this small group. Thank you.
Okay. All righty, we see you. Thank you. All right, that concludes the public comment on 9.1. So we're going to close public comment on that, and we'll open it up to board member discussion or questions. Any? Okay, it's a non-action. It's simply discussion. Trustee White?
Well, the things we heard people talk about were not about LGBTQ plus children and about the situation. They were how-to manuals. I think we need to make a difference between knowing about the subject and the how-to manual aspect of what we heard.
Okay, anyone else? Trustee Prusso?
I have a couple of questions and I have some comments. So in the next steps, you have for a district-wide library plan. Do we not currently have a plan in place?
We do have a current plan. It is out of date and has not been updated in quite some time, so it's in need of some review and updating.
Okay. And then, that's good to know, and I have some more comments about that. The challenge procedure, how do parents find that? Where do they find that procedure?
So that procedure is on the district website under challenging of curriculum. However, I'm hopeful that through the rewriting of the library plan, we can have some very specific, if parents or community members do have concern, that it's a more straightforward process. That's something I'm hoping to bring forward through that process.
I think that would be helpful. I feel like if we have current processes in place, that we should follow those processes. And then I just have a few comments. Obviously, this has been a topic of interest for I think this is the third board meeting that we've discussed it. And I've also received many comments and questions about this, having had to just run a campaign. So I do know that it is a topic that people have thoughts and are concerned about. So I just want to say a few things that I'm hoping will possibly be in just some ideas for the library plan, and maybe we can get some stakeholders in the planning of that. I am first of all, I want to say I'm a student of literature. I have a master's degree in literature, and I love reading and I love books. And because of that, I am typically against the censorship of books. For me, books are a way to learn empathy, compassion, and what it's like to live in another person's shoes. I'm going to get emotional here because this is how I feel about books like Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, The Kite Runner, Farewell to Manzanar, To Kill a Mockingbird, and The Watsons Go to Birmingham instilled in me an empathy that I could never understand regarding race relations within our country and experiences around the world. These books had such an impact on me as a child that I read them to my own children. And I have a deep respect for all literature and all books. And having said that, I believe that censoring a book because of ideology and censoring a book because of sexually explicit material are two different things. And I don't even know if censor is the right word here either. I believe that students should have access to age-appropriate books that provide educational value. And tonight we've learned a little bit about the processes and the policies on how we choose our literature. Mostly, I think tonight we just spoke about elective literature and not literature that we might use in curriculum. And that there is a way to challenge that literature. I'm glad that we're working on a plan. I think it's important. Clearly, it's a topic that we should have a good plan and policy for. I strongly support the processes that are in place and encourage concerned parents to work through those processes that we have to follow through. And then I also, with the current plan, I'm hoping, or the new plan, I'm hoping that we will have opportunity to educate our librarians and administrators on the new plan so that everyone's on the same page. Because I think, again, when you have a district the size that we do, not that it's enormous, but we do have a district with different schools that have different books, which is all great, but I think if we're all on the same page and following the same plan, I think that that's important. I also agree that we need queer representation in our libraries. I think that it's really important for children to see themselves in literature wherever they're coming from, and I think that that's really important. I think we can have queer literature in our libraries, and I think that we can have it without the sexually explicit content, especially for the younger grades. I will say too, I feel like we've been hearing a lot from members of the public that we don't care about this, that we don't follow up on this, and that we don't ask questions about this. And that is not true. Just because we haven't been able to in a public meeting so far, because it has not been on the agenda, does not mean that we're not following up with this, does not mean that we aren't checking our policies, and it does not mean that we haven't read the books. When you guys brought that book in, I ordered it on Amazon and I have read it. So I know what you guys are talking about, and I care about what you're talking about. As a parent, I understand that parents have always had the responsibility of overseeing what their children are exposed to in movies, in video games, in social life, in social media, and in books. And currently, I believe that we have a policy, I know because I've had to sign the paper, that requires a parent signature for a child watching a PG-rated film in class. I don't know if it's PG-13 as they get older, I'm not sure exactly, but even recently, my children are in high school now, have had to sign one of these. To me, it makes sense that this sort of level of appropriateness should extend to our literature as well. I believe that we should have the literature available at appropriate grade levels. The book that we heard from you tonight, I think 11 is pretty young for that. My daughter is a high school senior, and she read the book, and it was fine, and we had a discussion about it, a parent-child discussion, and it was a great discussion for us to have, but she is at an age where she can handle that, and it was a parenting moment for me, I guess, to have that option. So I do understand where your parents are coming from. I do understand your concerns. I would hope that in our new library plan that there would be some effort into what level of appropriateness in, I guess, in the sexually explicit area, that I think that that's important. As far as other books being, I think to me, the more books available, the better. But I understand that the having books with that much sort of, I guess Anne called the how-to manual, seems inappropriate for some ages. So I think that's my comments. I think it sounds like you're going to bring the plan back to us at some point when we have that.
Yes, the plan will be brought back, and
Okay.
yes, the plan will be created with input from multiple stakeholders.
Okay. And again, just like for librarians, administrators, teachers to understand what that plan is so that we're all on the same page. I think those are my comments.
Thank you, Trustee Prusso. Anyone else? Trustee Wong?
I agree with a lot of what Trustee Prusso had to say, so I won't belabor any points, except just to say that I also believe that it's very important for there to be a diversity of materials, as our high school student came in and spoke of, because it is so important for kids to see themselves in the books, not just in their libraries, but in what's assigned to them in their classrooms. And that's very, very powerful as someone who's also a minority myself, and having gone through a lot of my education not seeing myself in any of the materials that were assigned to me. I sought those out in the libraries, and so that is very important. And I'm glad to know that we're going to update our procedures, because that's what we should focus on, is tightening up what our procedure is for this. I think we can all agree not every book is appropriate for every child at every age, which I learned that lesson when my daughter, who was an early reader, started reading random books from my bookshelf. And I realized it's time to start looking more closely at what's in there that she can pull out. The thing I want to make sure we do when we kind of tighten up our procedures is to make sure it's not up to the whims of individuals, that it's either tied to, there's a list of these resources here. I don't know, they have age-appropriate levels attached to them. I know Common Sense Media does for a lot of things. I want us to use a guide that's made by professionals and experts, and not, who happens to sit here on the dais and who happens to come to meetings to talk about certain books and what books they happen to pick out. There needs to be a process that's objective. And so I'm sure we'll talk about that as we go. And I just want to encourage our students, especially, to suggest books. I think the very first slide said invite recommendations and includes from students. Students really should ask for the books that you want to see in there, and then it'll go through this process, and if it, fits the criteria, it should be on there. So that's all.
Thank you, Trustee Wong. Trustee White, you said you had
Yes.
something else?
The more I think about this, the more I think middle school is too late. What about the kindergartner that comes home and tells his mom, Joe has two dads? Or Tommy comes home and says, Melissa has two moms. Now, that's where it starts, the education about LGBTQ people. There could be storybooks, chapter books, early readers about families with two moms and two dads. I mean, that would be the beginning. So I think there's a whole range of appropriate literature, not how-to manuals, but appropriate literature on this topic. It could even be in the science section. That's where some people would seek for their information about sex education or even physiology changes. So I think it's a big topic that needs to be addressed at age appropriate. But explaining two dads to a kindergartner is different from a child who feels he is in the wrong body and what he should do about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee White. Trustee Guzman?
Yeah, I'm also in agreement that we should have a diverse perspective in our literature and our books and have it available. From a parent I grew up in a home where I didn't talk about these topics. And I want to change that for my children. I want to be able to have the trust that if there's a question that they can come to me and we will talk about it in a safe place without shame or stigma. And that's the type of relationship that I want with my kids. And again, it's, yeah, to come to me, but to come without fear. And again, I was raised in a home where certain things we just do not discuss. And that, then I'm learning out in the streets the wrong things. And it does have negative consequences as well. But again, diversity, seeing, I've read many of those books that you read, Trustee Prusso, and it opens up, it gets you to live and experience the life that you are unaware of, and it gets you to travel without leaving your home. And I think travel is one of the best forms of education, and reading is one of the we do so much to give our students literacy skills and critical thinking. Once we start to eliminate some things, we start to lessen their ability to, in my opinion, their ability to think critically. And we need critical thinkers. I believe, we are a global economy, and we need critical thinkers for our global economy. So with age appropriateness, I think we need to have a diverse library.
Thank you, Trustee Guzman. And to some of the comments, I know it met the intent. People come out and they're going to pick verses out of books that are, it's uncomfortable. And I would agree with that. That, as someone of my age, mixed company, you're probably not going to say some of that stuff. But I think that the key here is that we have a policy, and it appears as though our policy is outdated. To me, that's unacceptable, and it sounds like we're addressing that, and it needs to be addressed. The parents should have an avenue that they could look at a policy and say, I'm uncomfortable with this, there's a problem with this, there's a review process, a selection process, and that should be very transparent. And I think that there's also, it was mentioned this evening, and I'd be quite interested in it, the legal thing. When you start talking about Supreme Court decisions, well, that's going to kind of put things over, an overlay over everything. So I think somewhat within having a clear and transparent policy that parents are aware of, following proper legal procedures, and then also to be inclusive. I don't think that other things should intervene in terms of the inclusiveness. I am going to strive to make sure that it is inclusive, that it is not based on something that is outside of a policy that's been agreed on, and most importantly, the legal premise. And that's where I'm going to support it. It will be to that end. I don't think it comes down to a select group. If you have a problem with it, then there'd be a review process, but within that process, the legality has to be included. And it can't be steered by maybe a loud vocal minority, but even a loud vocal minority should have a voice, and it should be defined by policy. And because you can see it, people are passionate on both sides of this. And and for those who had to come or that felt the need to come, I understand the passion behind it. And you met your intended, your intent. With me, you did anyway, and I'm sure there's others. And I don't think you need to go that far. With me, I think it's just, some of those things might be uncomfortable to say in public. It makes people kind of squirm maybe. And, but then again, when you start talking about that number of books and that there's it's implied that we don't know the books, I can tell you, I'm going to be honest, and I'm always honest up here. There's no way that I'm going to be able to read every book in every library in 18 sites. It's impossible. And they're probably changing all the time. But some are going to come to light, and we have to rely on, it's not passing the buck, but there's a process to do it. And if the process is agreed upon and it meets legal standards, then to me, that's the best road forward. But I think it's an unfair burden. Some people, Trustee Prusso has a master's degree in literature. I do not. And even with the master's degree in literature, should I have one, I completely doubt that I would ever read every book in every library. It's an unrealized expectation. I have. I'm sure you have. And it's just, I just want to make sure that we're legally compliant and that we're not excluding kids and that there's perspectives that some of us may not agree with based on whatever it is. There's a lot of different standards that people are going to pick. And I think that it separates us when we start getting down to that. And I'd rather have something be inclusive than be exclusive, as long as we're within the legal thresholds of things. And that's where the thing changes. In my lifetime, a lot of things that used to be wrong are now right. And that's just a matter of community perspective and legal statute. And so when you get to that, and these things seem to be decided, let's move forward on that. And I apologize to anyone, on behalf, I'm not gonna say on behalf of the district, but if we have a policy that's outdated and it's not working on behalf of students, then we'll fix it. And I appreciate people bringing that to our attention, and we'll fix that. We're not beyond that, and no one's gonna ignore it. Let's fix the policy. It sounds like we're on a good road to that. So with that, I have no more questions. Is there any other questions, comments? All righty, thank you very much. Next item, please.
Thanks, President Bueno. I'd like to invite up our team from Junction Avenue K8 to provide us with an overview of their school, including some important information about student achievement and student programs.
Good evening, Bulldogs.
Good evening again. Will our slideshow be? Okay, great. Oh, there we are. Wonderful. Okay, once again, good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Van Schack, and Cabinet Community. I'm still the principal and very proud of Junction Avenue. And here joining us still is also Jeremy Vilkins and Danielle Mackey, who are both vice principals. You want to click it? That's one of our, we just love a shot. A parent at our recent Dia de los Muertos event took that. It was a beautiful evening. It was wonderful to have everybody out, and it was highly successful. Also, fundraiser for our 5th grade camp, and that's our Ballet Folklorico, for those of you who haven't had a chance to come out and see them. And they practice there at Junction, and twice a year they put on a show for us, and that's including Dia de los Muertos. So, our highlights. We are very proud that we are the recipients of the 2022 California Gold PBIS Implementation Award, the 2022 California Pivotal Practice Award. With our PBS, we are still continuing CalASL lessons, Bulldog Biscuits, and award assemblies. Those are really fun. We started those back up. With our social and emotional learning, we have our weekly cost meetings, our Choose Love, our trauma-informed instruction, and weekly counselor-led lessons. We also have enrichment before school and after school care. During lunch and after school, we have a variety of clubs. We have our sports programs, we have math counts, and our Ready programs. So our demographics stay pretty stable, but just a couple of highlights there. We are 73.2% Hispanic or Latino. 35% of us are English learners, and 48.3% of us are socially, economically disadvantaged.
For our school success data, we definitely have room to grow. For our ELA scores, 42% of our students met or exceeded standards. This is 3rd through 8th grade. So what are we doing to try to raise that percentage? We are implementing targeted reading intervention based on a universal screener called EasyCBM, and we monitor that throughout the trimesters. We have ELD strategies, including Be Glad, academic vocabulary, designated ELD time, We also have what's called UA time, or universal access, where everyone has a chance to get either extra help, intervention, or enrichment. We do that through cafe time or leveled small reading groups. This is also when we would pull students out to go to an intervention specialist or even to a resource teacher. For math, 23% of our students met or exceeded standards. So we are increasing our focus on math intervention through a PLC, through the professional learning community. Our teachers are looking at math scores and grouping students to target them or provide targeted math intervention so that they can raise their understanding of math concepts. 88% of our students had passing grades last year, and we're able to meet that or achieve that because our teachers are providing students with office hours before school, after school, during lunch. Our teachers really care about our students, and they want their kids to do the best, our kids to do the best. We have homework clubs. We just started a homework club with one resource teacher who's opened it up for everyone, and we're getting regulars, and the kids are feeling successful. I was just talking to a resource teacher today, and she was saying that in one of the classes that she pushes into, she's seen some of the students that go into that homework club raise their hand with confidence because they're getting the right answers. So we're really proud of that. Panorama, 58% of our students have reported a positive connection to the school and to the teacher. And so we are implementing more PBIS activities, lunchtime activities to boost school spirit, award assemblies, focus on the 3 R's or the 3 B's: be safe, be responsible, be respectful. We're doing Cinco, check in, check out. We're doing some good stuff.
So the student readiness data, if you look at the EL student progression, 26%, I just want you to know what we do. In elementary, they have the designated ELD during a certain time each day. Middle school students receive integrated ELD strategies throughout their different classes, but we do have 3 periods of an ELD class, and that's generally for newcomers or students that score a 1 or 2 on the LPAC. For our level 4 English learners who are reclassified, it's 100%. That is the best news all night. So yay for them. And ways that we can achieve that, ELD for sure. As a school last year, we decided academic vocabulary throughout the entire school, that we would focus on that. A lot of our teachers have been BCLAD trained and are willing to share. And we have targeted reading interventions. Suspensions, 2.7%. We'd still continue all year to implement the expectations of PBIS, and they're taught and practiced. We do have some alternatives to suspensions. We have our Wednesday school, and that's really where students go after school Wednesday, and they have a time to reflect on, behaviors that maybe they can change to be more successful. Also, we do have some little informational videos or books or passages that they read, and then they reflect on that. We also have peer mediation. I've been involved in a lot of those. Our counselor is very instrumental too in helping with that. Lastly, chronic office referrals, only 1.28%. With PBIS, we have the 3 minors referral form. That's really keeping kids in classrooms, and that's really what we all want, is our students in classrooms. And teachers are being really good about, giving kids the opportunity to make those corrections before they're sent to the office.
So the projects for the year are, of course, the targeted reading and math support classes. Our focus on improving Tier 2 and Tier 3 MTSS supports. Further implementation of PBIS, we got gold last year, so we're looking for platinum. And then, of course, to complete our dual immersion program analysis and using data-informed research to drive instruction and projects. Thank you.
All right. We have no cards on this, so we'll close the public comment and begin with any trustees. Have any questions or comments? Trustee White?
We all know that Junction is the best kept secret in Livermore. You get them as soon as you can in the morning and keep them as long as you can in the afternoon, because good things are happening at Junction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Guzman?
So I'm a big fan of Junction. My eldest graduated, bilingual. Very happy. I'm curious, I just saw next steps, dual immersion program analysis. What does that mean?
We've been actually working on our program analysis, and so we are going to complete that this year. We've been working with a UC San Diego and our own dual immersion steering committee, and we're really doing a program analysis, a full, complete program analysis.
All right. And when would we hear something about that? When do you anticipate hearing some of this analysis?
We will. The goal is to complete it this year, so the next board presentation.
Okay, all right. Trustee Pruso?
Yeah. First of all, I do want to say that I agree with Ann that I think Junction is a very special school. And one thing that I've noticed when I'm there is the community is just super awesome, very supportive. And I think that teachers, students, families, it's really a great place to be. So I think that's a great positive. Looking at the math data, one of the items you have on there is targeted reading and math support classes. Can you explain what that looks like? I know possibly for the elementary, it would be like a universal access time, but maybe could you explain what the middle school, what that looks like for middle schoolers?
Yeah, so right now we are looking at developing a new class for first period starting at the beginning of trimester 2. We're looking at who's struggling right now the most in the different classes. We have a teacher that has been approved to have one extra period or an additional period. She was working 5 out of 6, but because of a waiver for health benefits, she now can work 6 out of 6. So we have her. Right now, she's been pushing in because trimester 2 would be the natural start for that class. We're looking at 8th graders mostly because this is our last chance to have them before they move on to high school. And we have about 15 or so right now. A lot of it has to do with scheduling and figuring out what classes we can pull them out of. But they would be placed in this Math 8 class where they would be getting the extra support. It would be a smaller class, and we're hoping that with that, it's going to give them a little bit more of the attention that they need.
Okay, so is that like a 0 period or just first part of the day?
First.
Period. Okay.
And that's for math for we were lucky enough that last year we were able to implement intervention at the middle school level as well. So we actually have a teacher who is focusing on that, and that's in addition to our ELD courses.
Okay. That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Trustee Pruso. Trustee Wong?
I'm interested that there 88% of the students have passing grades, but then they are not meeting the CASP standards. Can you talk a little bit about kind of why there's such a big differential?
Yeah, so the 88% of students who are passing, they're passing with a D-. So that's what we're counting as passing because it is essentially passing. To meet or exceed standards, it would have to be based off of the one-time CASP test. That would be reaching either a 3 or a 4, and that would be equivalent to an A or a B. So that's the discrepancy. I was looking at that also, and yeah, but they are passing, which means that in high school, I'm not sure if a D- is passing. It's been a while. It has to be a C.
For UC.
For UC, but for diploma, it's passing. Okay.
Okay, so this 88% refers to D- and up. Okay. And this is something that I've asked Principal Garza about and also our superintendent because I have friends at Junction with students at Junction. And so I've heard a lot about, there are teacher shortage issues everywhere, including our district, and Junction isn't the only place. But I know you have special challenges hiring DI teachers because that's a very special group. And also why you've spent a lot of time teaching classes yourself this year. And so I've asked questions about what is the plan, like the parent asked about. I've had those same questions. What is the plan? Is this it? Or is that kindergarten class I've heard about a lot in particular? Is this the plan for them for the year? And I've heard, no, we haven't given up on that class. And so could someone, either up here or one of you, kind of give a little more information to the parents who are wondering, is there a plan and going forward for this year, not, something more short-term fix that we're working on?
Absolutely. There was always a plan. And so we worked very hard over the last summer and actually since April, we've been recruiting for a dual immersion for a number of reasons. It has been extra difficult. We also had some teachers retire, and then we had some teachers move out of state. And so in addition to other, as I mentioned before, Mr. Van Schack and I have sat in with parents and talked about what I call the perfect storm. And so we have been getting substitutes in, but there are legal requirements through the state of California that we cannot negate. We have to fall within those the rules and regulations. And so the plan is we actually have a pipeline into the universities that are particularly B-clad embedded universities. And so at the moment, we have 3 student teachers, and probably once a week I'm getting a request for more student teachers. So of course we sign them on, and they get to be in the classroom, and they get to see what's going on, and they get to learn about the dual immersion program, and then we get to learn about them as well. But they are still in their programs. And so there is a hiring fair coming up. We've worked very closely with HR to make sure that we get competent and people into the classroom. It has been challenging for sure, but there's always been a plan. Some things are out of our control. The things that we can control are things like establishing relationships with all of the B-clad programs and having HR, really, who are the experts, help us. And so we continue that. And we've had interviews for some people, but it hasn't worked out. We don't want just to put anybody. They have to be a competent person.
So I guess the message to the parents is we haven't given up on the school year.
We've never
We're
I
continuing
teach
to
2
try and-
periods a day.
Yeah.
I'm the principal. We haven't given up.
Yeah, okay. And I've spoken with our superintendent about trying to find creative ways to, get teachers, and especially if they're good qualified teachers, we want to do everything we can to reach out to them. And I've often offered up our trustee Guzman to
Does she know?
to meet with potential teachers and to entice them to come to our district and come teach at Junction. So
We have
I thought you were going to throw me back in the classroom. To meet future teachers, I'd be more than happy to help with that.
Fantastic, thank you.
just because I think it helps to see someone like her on the board and to see that this is a district you'd want to be at.
Yes, I've even reached out to several of my former students when I was an AP teacher at Livermore High, and we actually have hired some.
That's great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Wong. One other question on the CASP, there was something on page 3, and it talks about CASP, the math for 2022. Is there certain grades that we take that? You can refresh my memory when they take that exam?
The CASP, yes, 3rd, 5th, and 7th
For years, yeah.
3 through 5, that's correct, I'm sorry.
So at a K-8, 3 times it's taken. And I'm wondering, is 3rd, 5th, and 7th?
No, I'm sorry, I misspoke. Go ahead.
Can you rephrase, can you repeat the question, please?
The CASP scores, the
Yeah,
test.
the math, CASP
Math.
up there, yeah.
When is it taken? What
It's-
grade level?
It's 3rd through 8th grade in the school May.
Okay.
Every year.
Every year?
Yeah.
The 23% would then appear to be an aggregate. Do we have grade-by-grade scoring so that we could maybe more closely
Yes.
focus upon where the deficiency starts or begins?
Yes, we do.
Could you share that?
We don't have it on us.
Okay.
But yes, we do, and that's part of what our PLC work is that we're doing right now.
Okay. And will that come, Mr. Van Schack, will that come back to us so we can actually see that?
That's part of the scoreboard that we talked about.
Right.
And during the workshop, you'll get all of that information, grade level
Okay.
breakdowns and all this.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Bulldogs.
You guys are doing good work, and I know it's a challenge.
But we love it.
I know.
And the one thing I can say about Junction overall is they don't make excuses, they just make plans. And so it's a constant approach that we really feel like is the right approach. That they're always looking to improve themselves, and they're not about blame and shame, and they're about creating new plans. So we love that about our Bulldogs. Helen Gladden is up next. She's going to give the school report for Livermore High School.
The Bulldogs are a hard act to follow.
Yes.
Okay, so hello again. I'm back. I'm going to talk about Livermore High School and what we're up to right now. Last year, we revised our vision. I am a big believer in having a vision that we can all unite behind, that we all had input to. So everybody knows what the target is and what we're working toward, and that included parents, students, teachers, staff members. Everybody had a say in our vision. And our vision is to foster the academic, social, emotional, and physical growth of every student, and that all students will acknowledge their own and others' unique qualities, act with dignity and integrity, and graduate ready for college and/or a career. That's the Livermore target. Somebody have the slides? I have the slides. Uh-oh, this is fancy. Did I just hit the wrong? No, and I turned it off. Is it the red button? Oh. Check that out. Okay. So Livermore High School, 22-23. So last year, just about this time last year, we received our WASC accreditation. That's the Western Association of Schools and Colleges that accredits schools in the Western U.S. They came, we got what we anticipated, which is good. We got our 6-year term, that's the longest you can get, with a midterm visit, which is very typical. They come in after 3 years to make sure you're still on track, that you're working on the things in your action plan you'd say you'd work on. So that is very much guides our work. We are a very WASC-driven school. Our featured programs, we're proud of all our programs, but these are very unique ones at Livermore High School. Our agriculture program is the last one in Alameda County Schools. Our Green Engineering Academy, our Visual and Performing Arts, which you saw earlier tonight. I was talking about what's going on in our instrumental music. We have a great vocal music, theater. We just have a great visual and performing arts department, very proud of them. We have 23 career technical education pathways and are currently working on a 24th. And we have an outstanding wellness center for students who need some social emotional support throughout the day. We have a UC, Cal State University, A through G completion rate of 50%, and you'll find out later that's one of our big goals is to raise that. And last year, we had 576 advanced placement tests administered. Okay. Our current demographics, on any given day, this could be 1 or 2 students different, but as of when I put this together, we had 1,761 students. 13.1 are Asian, 1.8 African American, 44.6 white, 31.4 Hispanic Latino, and 8.8 2 or more races. We have 8% of our students are English learners, 15% are students with disabilities, and 21% are socioeconomically disadvantaged. On our school success data, we've been talking about CASP, unlike what Jeanette and her team were saying about that kind of difference in middle schoolers and elementary, about CASP success versus course success. What you'll find in high school, it's a matter of what is important to the student, and grades are far more important to a high schooler than the CASP test. So you'll see the difference there. So 50% of ours met or exceeded, 57% of our students met or exceeded standard on the English CASP last year. So what are we doing to improve that? We have an additional focus on reading and writing instruction. That's the strand they are the lowest in, including during Tier 1, which means in the classroom interventions, and during our weekly Cowboy Advisory period. We provide formative assessment strategies to teachers, a lot of focus on that district-wide this year. Teachers review results of formative assessments that they give in the classrooms to guide instruction and to revisit content that hasn't been learned. There's no sense moving past content onto the next lesson if there's parts of the content that haven't been learned. So we have to address that first. In math, we have 38% met or exceeded. Again, it's additional focus on the areas where the students are struggling the most in math is concepts and procedures. We'll provide formative assessment strategies, just like we're doing. And again, teachers are reviewing the results of the assessments to figure out what needs to be retaught or are the students ready to move on. So here's where you'll see the big discrepancy. Now, passing grades in core classes, that's a C or higher because we're talking about being A through G eligible. And the universities want a C or higher, not a D minus or higher. So 81% of our students do that. So planning actions to improve that number, identify and update our essential standards. Again, that's something we're doing at both high schools. For each course, develop and update common assessments tied to the standards, review the results of the assessments, and adjust instruction either on the spot, for the next day, or for future lessons. Each department is providing a presentation. This is new this year. We've always had different departments sign up for different faculty meetings to talk about themselves, what they do to provide snacks. Well, this year, instead, they can still bring the snacks, that's fine. But they're going to stand up and tell us about some sort of assessment they gave in common, the data they got from that assessment, and how they adjusted instruction accordingly, so that the whole staff is hearing what's going on in each department and getting ideas. Oh, we could try this, or this is what they found out in that department. And then our English, and we started this last year with East Avenue and Christensen with our Algebra 1 teachers. We're articulating just online with teachers from core Math 8. We want to do that as well with our English teachers this year with teachers from Core 8. So what are they seeing with students coming into our school? What should we be prepared for? What should we be focusing on? So I sat in on the one for math last year, and it was really eye-opening and a great, I think, really important thing to be doing. Okay, our attendance rate, most recent data last year, 93.84%. So what are we doing in that area? Students at risk of being habitually truant, we monitor them closely. That's the primary job of our child welfare and attendance aides, our administrative team, our counseling staff. We look at the attendance, we look at their grades. We have scheduled check-in with them if we see, oh, this child is slipping, hasn't been at school for a few weeks. We call home, we have a meeting with them. We also send monthly messages home through Blackboard about the importance of attendance. Here's one of our biggest focus areas right now. I want to raise that UC A through G completion, and not just for kids who want to go to a four-year college, but students that are going to a two-year college. It has been shown that students that go in A through G compliant will do better when they get to the two-year. Or if they're going directly into a trade or a job, why not go in as well educated as you can possibly be? So get that A through G. So that's what we're working on. And the way we're doing it, for years we've had a four-year plan that's developed in the FIT class, but now we require it to be taken home and signed by parents and then brought back. So the parents and the students actually have the conversation about what's your four-year plan in school. And I think that's an important conversation for parents and kids to have. Our counselors track the status of our students' A through G completion rate, CTE pathways. CTE pathways are career technical education pathways that give students a taste of a career they may want to go into. And we currently have 23 of those. We also are very lucky to have a migrant immigrant first generation counselor who encourages students to enroll in A through G. By first generation, I'm not talking about first generation American. I'm talking about first person in your family that will be going to college. So our counselor really encourages students, explains to them the importance of A through G CTE pathways, organizes field trips to various colleges and universities. And then our full faculty, this is part of our WASP plan, will develop an action plan to increase the representation of student groups in our A through G courses, our honors courses, and our CTE pathways, with the goal of mirroring the proportionality of the student population. So if you have 35% Hispanic in the student population, we would hope to see 35% in AP honors courses. Our EL student progression, last year 30% of our students progressed at least one level. So our plan is to provide, we are continuing, we started this 2 years ago. We were able to get our ELD courses A through G approved. Previously, the courses that students took that were ELD, those courses did not count for English at a four-year college. So you're automatically kind of blocked from A through G completion. We managed to get A through G approved ELD courses, so students no longer hit that roadblock. So we have one at each grade level, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th ELD courses. We also provide every trimester another course that's for support in their general education classes, and there's a bilingual aide that pushes in, so that's very good. So they're getting both the English and then support in the general education courses across the board. That's the tutoring course. We are providing ongoing training on how to integrate support for EL students into the general ed courses. In fact, now the coordinator here at the district office for EL is pushing out every week in Leadership Weekly and in Educator Weekly a strategy for exactly that. And they're great strategies, and our teachers read them. I cut them, I send them out to make them stand out from Educator Weekly. So that's a great support to us. And we have a full-time bilingual aide. We are attempting to, and it is advertised right now, hire another half-time bilingual aide to push into general education classrooms. And that's for students who are newcomers and speak very little English. Our Algebra 1 pass rate, here again, look at the difference between this and the CASP scores. Okay, so if the percentage of kids are like 30-something% that are meeting or exceeding math, but 64% of students taking Algebra 1 are passing it, because that's more important to the student than the CASP test. So what do we do in the area of algebra? We provide 2 trimester Algebra 1 courses, and we take students who need additional support and put them in a trimester 1 intervention before they start in on the Algebra 1A and the Algebra 1B in trimester 2 and trimester 3. Our second pronged approach is we take 9th graders who failed the 8th grade math or did not do well in 8th grade math, and we put them in a 3-trimester Math Academy course, so their whole freshman year, to give them those missing foundational skills prior to taking algebra so they can be successful in algebra as a sophomore. And the third that we're starting this coming trimester, which is just in a couple weeks, is we are going to take students who are moving into Algebra 1A and 1B, try 2, try 3, and we're in that first algebra support trimester, and take 15 from one algebra class and 15 from the other that are interested in doing this, and we will put them in an afternoon support class, still during the day, but their algebra would be in the morning, the support class will be after lunch. They go over the learning from the day, review it, and they get homework support, because we hear from a lot of parents, I cannot support my student with the math that they bring home. I'm not sure what to do, so the students struggle with the homework, and this is additional support to help in the area of algebra. Okay, and next, I'm sorry, I have a cold. I know my voice is hard to listen to right now. So suspensions, 3.4% of our students were suspended last year. It was interesting, the year that the students were not on campus, we had a total of 2 suspensions. But as soon as they came back to campus, we got back to really what the suspension rate was prior to the pandemic. So this is a pretty normal suspension rate for us, 3.4. So what are we doing in those areas? We collaborate with partner agencies for suspension reduction. We particularly have that in the area of tobacco use. So rather than getting suspended, you can go for a couple counseling sessions on the dangers of, it was both tobacco and vaping, actually. Continue to implement our PBIS framework. We got a silver award this year. We want to aim for a gold next year. Provide educational assemblies on anti-bullying. We've already had 2 of those this year. We had one speaker come in and talk to the entire 10th grade, and then actually today we had another group come in to talk to all our FIT classes. So that's what's going on. Use of our coordination of services team for academic, behavioral, and social emotional wraparound supports. Teachers can send students' names forward to the cost team. They review it, decide if that student should be put on the cost agenda, and then that student is added to get support. So that's, most of our schools have cost. College and career readiness, 60.6 were prepared as of last year. What are we doing in that area? Our academic counselors visit every kid at every grade level. So what they do is they pick a class every kid has to take and go to those classes. So in 9th grade, they go to FIT. Let's say in 11th grade, they go to U.S. history. That's how they do it. They go in, they discuss the 4-year plan. Again, take it home, discuss it with your parent, get it signed, bring it back. CTE pathways, graduation requirements, A through G, and financial aid. A lot of kids don't realize that they should apply for the FAFSA financial aid, and that we really push that too. Don't think you can't go to college if you don't think you can afford it. There is financial aid out there. Use of our cowboy advisory period, and use of credit recovery sections during the school day. A lot of kids will do credit recovery during the school day. They won't do it after school or on the weekend. And then, what else do we have here? Oh, our projects for the year. So our big projects include, and this is district-wide, determining our essential standards. So we talked about that. What's an essential standard for each course? It's really identifying out of all the standards for that course, what's the minimum group of standards students have to master to be prepared for the next course level. And that's the bare minimum we want them to learn. So then we have to articulate that with kids coming in from the previous grade and going up to the next grade, so that the standards flow and cascade. Provide time for Algebra 1 and English 9 teachers to articulate with our feeder schools. We talked about that. Develop and update our formative assessments, analyze the results, teach concepts not learned. Provide faculty. This is something new for us. We're really enjoying this. We've been to some AVID training. Provide faculty with advancement via individual determination. That's the program, AVID. You may have heard of it. Writing, inquiry, collaboration, organization, and reading. They call those their Wicker strategies. So we've been discussing those at faculty meetings, different strategies. Strategies for supporting EL students in general education classes, and strategies for supporting our students with disabilities. In fact, we're going to have a presentation on that particular topic at our next faculty meeting. Full faculty analysis at the end of every trimester. We look at the trimester data, including pass rates, A through G roadblocks. An example of an A through G roadblock may be, and I'm just pulling this out of the air. Let's say our pass rate at Spanish 2 is low. That means that students take out maybe Spanish 1, pass it, struggle in Spanish 2. Now they are not meeting the A through G completion rate for the foreign language. So what would we have to do at the Spanish 2 level to get rid of the roadblock? That's the kind of thing we analyze. And then examine course taking patterns of students by subgroup, because as I said earlier, we want to get that to mirror the percentage of the subgroups in our general population. So that's it for Livermore High School. Any questions?
Well, thank you very much. We have no comment cards, so we'll close the public comment portion.
Okay.
And then we'll move to any questions or comments, trustees? Trustee Wong?
I have one question on whether you've seen any changes in the diversity of students in AP classes since the pandemic.
I don't know that I've seen changes since the pandemic. I think I've been around Livermore High School 18 years. I mean, 4 of those were in different schools, but off and on for 18 years. And I think what I have seen more diversity than I did when I first started at Livermore High. I think there are still student groups we need to get more representation in, for sure.
So are there specific efforts to kind of figure out how to make that happen?
Yeah, so before the pandemic, and we'll be doing this again, we used to do these invitations, personal invitations from teachers to students to come to the AP, at least come to the AP planning meeting and hear what it has to offer. Because sometimes students think, oh, it's not for me. AP's not for, I'm not even going to go to the meeting. My friends aren't in there, I don't know. And we want to get that invitation. I think you can do this. I think you need to come to the AP meeting. So let's get as many kids to come, listen, realize maybe this is for me, you know? So that's one strategy. And then this is what we're working as a faculty. I certainly don't have all the answers. The faculty who works in AP and works in honors, they come up with fabulous ideas of how to recruit students. So that's what we're doing as a team.
And I love hearing all the support that there is, like during the school day and then after school. And my husband and I have become regular tutors on Wednesday nights there.
Oh, great.
And
In the
it's-
library.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we can use more students. There are a lot of nights we're sitting there staring at each other with
Yeah.
no students to tutor. So, and I've recruited lab scientists to come and tutor, so they can tutor any science, any math. They're ready
Yes.
to go. So I'd love to see more students there.
We will keep working on that. We have other good tutoring things going on as our math club tutors students of all ages. So that's wonderful to see. It's high school students tutoring other students, just kids that excel at math. So we have that going on. And I want to brag about our our new EL teacher and our wonderful EL coordinator who are doing EL tutoring twice a week after school, Tuesdays and Thursdays now. They just started that this year. So students, they came and said, you know, I sit around and wait for the train to take me home. I could use that hour and a half and tutor the kids after school. What? Oh, fabulous. Who's going to say no to that? So that is just wonderful. And we get a lot of the newcomer students who are just learning English that come to that. So there's a lot of tutoring going on. The Wednesday night tutoring you're talking about just started back up. I do find that as trimesters go on, you'll get more kids showing up for tutoring. The trimester starts, everything's okay. Then they start realizing I'm a little behind on this. I need a little more help on that. So I think by maybe midway through the next trimester, you'll start seeing an uptick in that.
Yeah, and some of the tutors I've recruited are Spanish speakers, so
Oh,
they can
terrific.
tutor upper level Spanish.
Okay, I'll make
And
that
I can
very
tutor
clear.
lower level Spanish. I asked about diversity. How about just the absolute numbers in general in AP classes? Have you seen any change since the pandemic?
No, AP courses are popular.
Okay.
They are. It's we don't say no. If you want to take an AP class, I'm not going to. We can't. It's full. Can't get you in. I mean, if you're going to do AP, we're going to get you in. So we do have some that are very, very full. So we had to look at it and start a new section of it because it was just getting too full. Some are very popular. Some are not as popular, don't appeal to every kid, but if you want to take an AP course, we're here to support you taking an AP course. Challenge yourself.
And then my last thing is just about vaping, and I've spoken with you about it, that
Yeah.
there've been, I've a lot of principals that they've seen decreases, but I know the tobacco companies haven't given up. They're producing new products all the time that get around the laws and the ordinances, and so I'm, periodically ask you, do you have any new confiscated products for me? So we continue to take those because it helps us stay on top of what the tobacco companies are producing, so we can keep updating our laws.
Yeah, so what we confiscate will be going to you for your educational processes. Sometimes we get surprised by, have you seen this one before? This is new looking. It kind of looks like a pack of gum. Or everything seems to be disguised to look as something else. And it's frightening to think that's what's being marketed to children, but.
And they haven't given up. I mean, we passed our state law, we just protected it on November 8th, and now they're suing us. So they just keep going. And on the other side, they're producing new things. So we just have to stay on top of it.
And I think it goes beyond vaping too. There are products out there now, even more dangerous, that are also being packaged to look like candy. So I sent a message out to parents just last week about these gummies, these highly concentrated marijuana gummies that look like gummy bear. They look like a gummy candy. And the frightening thing is, while a teenager might survive that, be very sick, if a sibling found that, a young sibling, and thought that's a package of gummy bears, but the total is 500 milligrams in that package, I can't even think about what would happen with that. So the way things are being packaged is disgusting.
Yeah, and our monthly school board update with County Public Health on COVID was 10 minutes on COVID, and then the rest of the time on fentanyl overdoses. So it's a
Scary.
lot to stay on top of. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Wong.
I'm also a really big fan of Livermore High School. My girls both go there, and I just wanted to talk about the Algebra 1 pass rate planned actions for a second and just probably clarify. I think I understand it. The 2 trimester Algebra 1 courses, that's like what a typical student would take.
Yes.
There's an intervention of a support trimester followed by the 2 trimester algebra. I just want to clarify, is that the second and third trimester would be normal, like what the other students are taking? The first
Yes.
trimester is maybe like a review or?
Yes, and it's really for the teacher to try and determine where are the holes here and to give actual intervention support. So there are students that start Algebra 1 and try 1, Algebra 1A, Algebra
Sure.
1B. But the students who get that trimester of support will get that in trimester 1 and then take Algebra 1A in trimester 2, Algebra 1B
Yeah.
in trimester 3.
I like that better. I feel like in the past, they just spread out the algebra over the course of the year. And I think it's probably more effective to keep the algebra in the 2 trimester. And then if people need that extra, it's like a whole trimester of preparing for it.
Right, prior, the 3 trimester algebra was the same curriculum, just slowed down
Yeah.
as the 2 trimester. But what we found is, but there's holes that need to be filled.
Yeah.
So that's
Okay,
what we're
I
focusing
think
on.
that's good. And then also it looks like the additional support class, I really like that idea as well. So they're taking their normal algebra class, but then they have an additional support class possibly for homework or whatever challenges they
Right,
might have.
and we'll make sure it's after, so it's in the afternoon after you've had the teaching and you
Okay.
have homework. That's what we're going to focus on.
Okay, I think those are great ideas. It'll be interesting to see what happens next year having those in place. And then I just had one other comment on your school success data, that each department was to provide a presentation during the faculty meeting. And I don't know if you've gotten to double schmokel yet, but I would advise you to, has Schmokel done
his presentation yet?
Yes.
No, not yet.
Well, I mean, my girls have him and they love playing, he has a game called Double Schmokel.
Oh.
I'm sure you've heard of it.
Nope, never heard of it.
You guys haven't heard of it? They love it. So
I'm going to have to
there you
ask
go.
Mr.
Ask him.
Schmokel, what's
Double
Schmokel?
Schmokel.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll be doing that tomorrow.
I think it's like Double Jeopardy, but it's Double Schmokel.
Oh, that's wonderful, double Schmokel.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, that's funny.
Thank you, Trustee. Trustee Guzman?
So you shared this presentation or parts of this presentation last week. And I just want to give you and your team props for getting those ELD courses, UC or A3G credit. I used to work for UCOP, and my department was right next to the accreditation. And I know, speaking with my colleagues, that how rigorous it is to get. But that's a huge population of students that we're missing out.
Yes.
And, you know, they have the capability and everything like that. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm very pleased that that happened because a language, because you speak a different language doesn't mean you can't go to a 4-year school and be a scientist or, I mean, it doesn't mean that you're not well-educated. It's just, you moved here and you're learning a new language. So we don't want any roadblocks in anybody's way.
It's really good. And again, I mirror some of the comments for going because we were able to see the plans and this mirrors a lot of it. You guys are doing good work over there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And we did win the football game too.
Good.
It's been noted, but we'll note it again.
And you have a great band.
Yes, the band might have won also.
Yeah, I know.
The final score did not come in for the band.
They did a great job though. Okay, we're going to take a small adjournment and we're going to come back in. We'll reconvene at 7 minutes, 51. Okay, welcome back, 21:51 hours. And Mr. Van Schack, there was, I think we had a small change.
Yeah, so President Bueno, with your permission, I'd like to move item 10.2 up so that we can appoint our new committee member and let that person move on their way. They sat here very patiently for the length of this meeting, so I'd like to give them an opportunity to wrap this up before they change their mind.
All right, so any opposition, board? Just go ahead. No? Okay, so let's move the action item 10.2 up, and then we'll come back. We'll come back in at 9.4.
Thank you. Good evening, President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Van Schack, cabinet, and audience that's left. So tonight we are hoping that you will appoint this one member to our Measure J Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. Just to give you a little background, Measure J was initially passed in June 2016. It requires an annual independent citizens oversight committee to review the expenditures and the performance audit. The committee members must live within the boundaries of the district, and they are committed to a 2-year term. I don't know if I told you that.
Yes.
As you know, the goals of Measure J are to repair and update the district's facilities in order to ensure a safe and modern educational environment for all students. And I know most of you have seen some of the great buildings that we have already completed, and there's still a few things that need to be done. The committee's charge is to conduct meetings in accordance with the Brown Act. That means it's open to the public. They review, as I said before, they review expenditures and the performance audit of the specific budget year. And then they present a report to the Board of Trustees by the end of the school year. So we have Amanda Pepper, who is here. Hello.
Hello.
And she's a representative of our parent community. And the superintendent's recommendation is to approve the applicant and appoint them as member to the Measure J Citizens Bond Oversight Committee.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? We have no comment cards on this, so we'll close public comment, and then I'd entertain a motion on this.
I'll make a motion. First, I want to thank Amanda for sticking it out tonight and for doing this for us, because I know that this is a really important job and we really appreciate it. And with that, I would like to move that we approve the applicant and appoint them as a member of the Measure J Citizens Bond Oversight Committee.
I second that.
So we have a motion in support of the superintendent's recommendation by Trustee Prusso, and it's been seconded by Trustee Wong. Any discussion on the motion? Madam Clerk, if you'd call the roll.
Trustee Guzman.
Yes, aye.
Trustee White.
Aye.
Myself, aye. Trustee Wong.
Aye.
President Bueno.
Aye, unanimous. Thank you very
Yay,
much.
congratulations.
Thanks for sticking it out. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move back into our discussion items, and if you would introduce 9.4, please.
Fantastic, thank you. I would like to introduce Mr. Matthew Hart. He's our Director of Assessment Accountability, and he is here tonight to provide you with his annual review.
Good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Van Schack, members of cabinet, members of the community. I'm Matthew Hart, I'm the Director of Assessment and Accountability, and I'm here to present to you our assessment report for this year. The purpose of this presentation is that any district receiving federal money must report major academic data to the board and the public. Now, locally, we've kind of expanded this requirement to include data on all programs emphasized by our district. I'll talk a little bit more in a bit about how we break those down. A few weeks ago in our board workshop, we looked at the district scoreboard, and that was a very focused look at data, an attempt on our part to decide ahead of time the metrics by which we will determine whether or not we've had a good year or not. And that's, again, that's very focused. This is a little bit the opposite. It's by the purpose of the law, it's not focused. It's sort of everything. And because of that, I have written a fairly expansive report. It's probably a good sleep aid if you're looking for help with that. And also because of that, I'm not necessarily in this presentation going to go through everything in that report. I am going to take the liberty of sort of highlighting a few things that I think are important, and certainly those things that would align with the board's vision as communicated previously. So really briefly, this is the kind of demographic breakdown of our students. We have just over 13,000 students and roughly about 1,000 students per grade. 10%, almost 10% of our population are English learners. About 21% are socioeconomically disadvantaged. We have just over 15% of our students in special education, and there's our ethnic breakdown across the district. That's TK through our transition programs, actually. The way that I've broken the data down, both in the report and in this presentation, are by the elements of the way we divide things up, for example, for the multi-tiered systems of support, and that we're looking at data regarding academic achievement through the CASP, LPAC, EasyCBM, AP and IB, and the SAT and PSAT. I'll present those tonight. A look at behavior data, specifically suspension data and referral data, and then a look at social emotional data. Now, all the data are from last year. We haven't updated it for this year necessarily. This is all cumulative for last year. Okay, so our CASP ELA scores across the district, 60% of our students scored proficient in English language arts. And here we have a breakdown by student group, basically. Just a couple out of these that are probably important to note. The one on the far left is all students. And then what we do is we kind of look for gaps, right? Achievement gaps, places where we have groups of students that have maybe not behind the average set by all students. And so here, our African American students, our Hispanic students, our students who are socioeconomically disadvantaged, and our English learners do have a gap in their English language achievement as measured by the CASP. And this is a grade breakdown, actually, and you asked this of Junction earlier, and if for back there passing the time, I went ahead and emailed you all the Junction grade breakdown, so when you go check your email, you'll have that there. This is the, students get tested in CASP in grades 3 through 8 and grade 11 for ELA and math. And you can see there the grade breakdown. In general, the trend there is that it kind of starts highish around 63%, and then it seems to decrease as it goes along. Although when you get the Junction ones, I was looking at those, they're peculiar in that it actually is a little bit of the opposite, that students in the lower grades at Junction seem to be less proficient, and then they get more proficient as they progress through the school. The same set of data for CASP math. This year, you do see achievement in the overall achievement of our students, right? As opposed to 60% in ELA, 47% of our students test as proficient on the CASP in math. This is the student group breakdown, and you can see the kind of the same, roughly the same gaps for the student groups that also had gaps for English language arts. And this is the grade level breakdown, where again, starts fairly high and then kind of decreases, not quite at the same steady rate. There's a somewhat sharp drop right around 6th grade. The LPAC is how we measure the progress of our English learners, of our emerging bilingual students as they progress towards literacy in at least 2 different languages. The LPAC is divided up into 4 levels. This is the summative LPAC, and they can score 1 to 4. 4 is the farthest along in progression. Any student that's going to be reclassified as fully English proficient has to test at a level 4 on the LPAC. And as you can see, the vast majority of our students are concentrated kind of in the middle at levels 2 and 3. About 71% of our students are in those middle levels of 2 and 3. From our district scoreboard data, we're certainly a renewed focus on making sure that students are progressing on the LPAC every year. We've made it a goal to have every single student progress at least 1 level on the LPAC every single year. This is, for some of you in this room have known me for a long time, and if you have, then you know I've probably bored you before with my undying love for this kind of report. This is called a pivot table. It's my favorite kind of report. What a pivot table does is it shows progression. It shows who has progressed in the past year and who may have regressed in the past year. So the part to look at is this part up here in the upper left. All the numbers in green would be students that improved on the LPAC last year as compared to the previous year. So for example, That number on the very top far left, those are those 5 students. We had 5 students that progressed from a level 1 on the LPAC all the way up to a level 4 on the LPAC. They grew 3 levels in a single year. We had 32 students go from a level 1 to a level 3, 86 go from a level 1 to a level 2. So anything green is progress. Anything in the white squares, the 90, 144, 222, and 7, that's even progression. That means that those 90 students scored a 1 one year and then a 1 the next year. And then anything in red would be a regression. So for example, we had 40 students that scored a 2 the year previous and then scored a 1 last year. So pivot tables are absolutely fantastic for determining I guess just the effectiveness and quality of the programs that we utilize. We also utilize some locally adopted measures. Both the CASP and the LPAC are required assessments by law, but we have adopted locally in the elementary the use of Easy CBM. It's basically a literacy screener, but it gets used at multiple times throughout the year to continue to monitor student progression in literacy in this case, right? So this data here is taken from the last assessment of the year in the spring from last year. And what it measures is risk, basically, like literacy risk. So blue is good in this case. It means low risk for concern. Some risk is what it sounds like, that there's some evidence of concern for literacy level, and then high risk would be high risk for basically students reading below grade level for certain at that point. This is a number that grows. I think in my report detail how you would expect this to sort of, that blue to grow as you continue throughout the year in the elementary grades, and it does. At the high school, we have the AP and the IB tests, which Ms. Gladden discussed earlier in her report on Livermore High School. We have a large amount of students taking exams, over 1,200. Of our students, or at least over 1,200 exams were taken by LVJUSD students last year. And of those, which you can see is the vast majority, 3 in general, 3 is considered passing in other words, that a college will give credit for that score. So 3, 4, and 5 are the good numbers. And you can see there that it's around, over 75% of our students are achieving enough to gain college credit on the AP tests. We do have less IB tests given, but the effect of those is similar. They can get college credit for those. I haven't done the scoring up here because different IB exams score in different ways. I've really just sort of summarized it by exams passed, kind of by the same sort of metric. And there, for the students taking the IB exams, 92% of students students pass the IB exam. So super high achievement on AP and IB tests for our highest achieving students in the high school. For the SAT, one thing I want to kind of talk about with this chart is the second column shows the total number of test takers. So as you can, 3 years ago in 2019, 2020, fairly large amount of test takers, right? 418 seniors took the test, 146 juniors took the test. As you would expect during the year of shutdown during the pandemic, those numbers dropped. They rebounded a little bit last year, but certainly not, all the way, not to the degree that was previous to pandemic. That's due to some changing attitudes probably about the SAT itself. Certainly colleges seem to be de-emphasizing it. We used to have students taking it very, very, very early their junior year so that they could retake it multiple times. More and more students are pushing it towards their senior year, or even potentially not taking it. And that said, it's still in use. Many private colleges definitely require it. Many students want to keep their options open, and so achievement on the SAT is valued. And as you can see there, the achievement rates are above the national. Well, I don't have the national average up there, but I'll just tell you that the passage rates for us are above the national average for the SAT. So high achievement there as well. The PSAT is the preparatory SAT. We, through the generous support of like the Pedrosi group, were able to pay for this for every single sophomore. Now, during the 2021 school year, the year of student dismissal, The PSAT is given in October, so we were in student dismissal at that point. We did not require every sophomore to take it. We allowed students to come on and take it voluntarily that year rather than requiring it, which accounts for the fact that only juniors really took it, right? And those were juniors that were looking to use the test, probably to qualify for the National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test, which the PSAT enables them to qualify for. Anyway, so we do have students in other grades take it. We have freshmen voluntarily sign up for it, and of course, grade 11, not only to try to qualify for the National Merit Scholarship, but also just to prepare for the SAT, which they may be leading towards. For students that voluntarily take it, the scores are very, very high. As you would guess, when we bring everybody in, the scores do drop a little bit, but still, those are in the 70% for everybody is a consistently fairly high score. That is the academic data. For behavioral data, suspensions. So for last year, I did not do a 2021 or 1920 because the extended periods of student dismissal during those times kind of rendered that data not really comparable. I mean, that stuff matters, but if we're looking at, in some ways, apples to apples data comparison here, what I included were the number of suspensions going back to 2018, 2019, the last full year until last year of students, sort of going all year. And what you can actually see is that suspensions dropped significantly from last year so last year suspensions were down compared to what they were when we were last in school for the full year, which is kind of interesting. It runs slightly maybe contrary to the idea that, that there were significant behavioral issues when students came back off of distance learning. I do think some of those, I'll talk a bit, there's some data in a different place that maybe shows some of that. However, in the case of suspensions where where the misbehavior is so, I guess, important or difficult that students have to take the sort of, the mandatory break, those numbers actually reduced significantly, which is good. Suspensions aren't the only thing that matters, though. There are office referrals. Now, office referrals might end in a suspension or they might end in nothing, but they are time out of class, right? So what we've done in the past couple of years is become much better at keeping data on office referrals. So here, a couple highlights here. We do have a bit of a spike in middle school. That's the average referrals per day. So we have 7.9 in middle school. And then the top percentage of overall referrals are through disrespect and defiance. And I would say that in comparison to behaviors from previous to the pandemic, that is where we see a jump. I mean, disrespect and defiance would not be things, all the time, we're not going to suspend for those. However, they are a significant percentage of the behavioral misconduct from our students. So I think the suspension data shows the impact of the PBIS programs used throughout the district and work in a bunch of different areas. However, it does seem that there's continued work to be done here, especially with our tier 1 level of behavioral instruction, what we're doing exactly in the class to help our teachers manage disrespect and defiance. The vast majority of disrespect and defiance behaviors come out of the classroom, not out of other parts of campus. So that's why I focused on the classroom. That's our behavioral data. So the last section here is on social emotional data. Twice a year, we give a survey called Panorama, which is a reflective social emotional survey given to students. And what I like a lot about Panorama is you'll see two columns there in the middle. So the first column is the percent favorable. And that is useful information, right? You can take a look at self-management for grades 4 and 5. And so the percentage of students who give favorable responses there are 78%. And you can say, well, that's a good number or a bad number. But what I like about Panorama is that third column, which is it also compares to others nationally. Because you might say, because we are working with children and teenagers, right? So you might take a look at something like emotional regulation there and say, only 50%. And that matters, that only 50% have favorable responses to that. However, when you also take and compare that to, the students in the rest of the nation, you notice that we're in the 60th to the 79th percentile, which would be on the upper end. So both of those matter. Now, there is work to do, but that it's not necessarily cause for panic because we are working with children, different than adults. However, those percentile numbers, there is, I think we could look at areas of potential concern in grades 6 to 12. So this teacher-student relationships in the 20 to 39th percentile, cultural awareness and action, the 20 to 39th percentile, and sense of belonging, 0 to 19th percentile. So in this case, how we compare to others nationally is weaker than, for example, say, student evidence of growth mindset or even high schoolers' emotional regulation, which is actually pretty strong. We use a service called Care Solace in this district. So for students or even family members that have evidence of a I guess not severe necessarily, but a social emotional difficulty in acquiring fairly intensive support. One thing that our counselors can do or other school personnel is refer out to a group called Care Solace. And what this does is Care Solace talks to the family, determines what their needs are, and also what their abilities are. Like, for example, what kind of, what insurance might be able to do, and then it refers them to an appropriate agency for intensive and high-level support. So Care Solace referrals, and the information here would be good data to show us, to track the most intensive kind of social emotional problems that we might see throughout our district. So a couple kind of things I'm just highlighting from this. We do have spikes in Care Solace referrals in February and March. That coincides with other data in the district I'm presented tonight, but for example, like lower attendance numbers during those months, for example, in some cases increased behavioral referrals during those months. A slightly higher percentage of females being referred than males. And then at the bottom, they select what the need is, what the social emotional need is. No, those numbers don't add up to 100% because they can choose more than one, right? However, almost half of them are for anxiety. And so that does seem to line up with a bit of a narrative we've had post-pandemic, which is an increase in anxiety among our students. We do also utilize a program in this district called Kid Connection. And so in our elementary schools, students can be referred to Kid Connection. Kid Connection is a program where students will go and they'll, through the use of like social play or social stories, they get taught social emotional skills. Teachers are then, there's follow-up with the teachers, and they're asked for the goals that student set. Each student sort of gets set goals. Did the student make progress on that goal? And so green and blue here are good, both significant and some progress. Was that 80% of our students seem to be helped, greatly helped by the Kid Connection program. All right, that was a lot, really quickly. So I'll go through and just some points of emphasis, and I've mentioned, I think, all of these, but we do seem to have a general math achievement gap, a need for English learner support, very successful AP and IB results at the high school level, very successful SAT results for those students that choose to take it. A focus on early literacy. There seems to be both a need for it, and what we are doing seems to have an effect that's positive so far. We've seen a suspension rate decrease since the last full year previous to the pandemic. We do have some common discipline problems that still deserve attention and support, and then an increase in anxiety for many of our students, especially those with our most intensive problems who get referred to Care Solace. And that is the report, and I think there's no action needed, but this time it is open for questions.
Thank you very much. We have no comment cards, so I'll close the public comment on that. And we'll start with Trustee Guzman.
Yes, thank you. So I'm looking at the CASP scores, and I'm noticing the two groups, well, one, the Hispanic Latino and the English learner. And I look at the ELA English learner, and I see 69% did not meet, or standard not met. And then I look at the CASP math, same subgroup, and it's a higher percentage, 72%. So I'm curious, what does the CASP math test look like and the language arts? I just try to do a Google search and I can't access the training practices. I need a keyword, but I'm just surprised.
Yeah, if you're looking for information on the CASP itself, the Smarter Balance test and the California version of it are actually very open about the construction of that test. I'll send you what I have. It's a lot. There's what's called the testing blueprints, and then they often refer out to another document called the content specifications. But if you read both of those, you do get a very, very, very good sense of what exactly those tests are comprised of. And so I'll share that information.
Yeah, because for me, the shock factor is that, I mean, they're both high numbers for the English learners, but it seems that our English learners are performing better on the English language arts exam than they are in the math.
Yeah, I think that.
So that's why I'm like, what are these math? I mean, they both need to get up.
Right.
But I'm just curious, like, what do they look like?
It's certainly worth more analysis. I think that probably, my knee-jerk response is that it reflects the overall gap in math achievement that we seem to have in our district, and we see that reflected there as well. Sometimes with English learners, we think, well, it'd be on the ELA exam because they're learning English. Maybe but especially for maybe like a newcomer student, that they might have more struggles making sure that they're able to access that exam. But of course, as we have a certain percentage of our students who are level 1, right, sort of newcomer students, but the vast majority, though they may not be reclassified yet, and though they may not be thinking biliterally yet, they certainly are able to, engage in text, engage in class, engage in a very high level assessment like the CASP is. And so any limitations in language wouldn't necessarily be limited, or wouldn't necessarily limit them to achievement on the CASP ELA any more so than the math.
Yeah, I would love to look at it though.
Yeah.
I will send you the testing,
Okay.
the blueprints for both math and English.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Pruso?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I appreciate the data, and I know that we recently had a workshop with a lot of this same data, and so we're getting it again. But I think it's important, and I think it's important for our community that we're being transparent and we have the data here. And I think it'll be really interesting to see next year. I feel like we're kind of having to start fresh because for a couple of years there isn't even sort of comparable data available to see how we do next year. And I just too want to assure the public that there are lots of plans in place to try to improve, what's happening at our schools. And we're saying that we've seen some of that here. We're seeing it with our school plans as these teachers have come up. And they're also in the SPSA plans if people want to look in there as well. But I just feel very hopeful because I feel like we're really trying to address the issues. And I just wanted people to be aware of that and just appreciate the data, but not just the data, but how you've been able to present it to us in a way that we can understand and sort of look at it, because this is not my area of expertise, but certainly yours. And I think you've done a good job at explaining it to us. So thank you.
I appreciate that. I also have a master's degree in English literature, so I think that it helps with data more than you might know.
Trustee Wong?
I'll be very brief because I pretty much, once again, just agree with my trustee here. What you do, the data and information you provide is so helpful for us in making decisions around budgets or curriculum or anything like that. So I just really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I too. It's enjoyable to see it. And I like the format. Just one thing, I don't know, these are like PDFs. And so maybe you lose a little bit. And it's not the data, or it's just kind of in that presentation. When you get into that really fine numbers, number 4 font, if you could, I don't know, clean them up. Just
Clean up the resolution.
Because I find myself trying to look at the screen, and then it makes it more difficult to go back and reference because it's a difficult document to read. So if you could just maybe make those full page slides versus 2 on a page, then we can actually see it.
I'll do that.
That'd be kind of.
Do you want an amended report with that, with it
No,
expanded?
you could do that. However it works out. But sometimes to get these packages, it takes right down to the wire to get it. Just to either to look at it electronically so we can pick our size, or to look at it in a full page so we can actually see it. Because it is a lot of data, but it's nice to be able to go through and, we're seeing it right here in front of us. But
I think the background material in the agenda is page per page rather than two on a page like the.
Yeah, it's nice to follow, though,
Yeah.
with your explanation,
Yeah,
because then you can get to the intent and why you're presenting it and stuff.
okay. Yeah.
It's really good. Thank you.
Could I go on?
Yeah.
Okay, it's no secret that I'm a longtime supporter of Kid Connection. And it's a scheme that was invented in Rochester, New York. And we've translated it well enough that 80% of our students do better after they've participated in Kid Connection for their time. I don't think they participate a whole year, but a goodly part of a year. And I'm just so very grateful that the folks years and years ago, 30 years ago, I think, or so, imported Kid Connection from Rochester. And our students are doing better because of it. Thank you. 80%, he said, so. And it does cost money.
It does, and it takes guidance, and just Lisa Hannon and Danner is in the back, and the job that she's done with our wellness programs has shown immediate impact, and this data came from her. I know they're doing a great job tracking stuff over there, and the work they do is really fantastic.
Thank you very much.
One of the things I just wanted to add to that is the slide that showed points of emphasis. So all of the things there that are growth areas are included in our budget priorities for the one-time spending. And so we went directly from areas of growth to whether it's ELD or wellness plan, all of the things sort of translated to, we identified areas of growth, and then we put money in those areas, resources in those areas. So I just want to point that out. And that does segue into the next report, which will be, in fact, our
Thank you, Mr. Hart.
wellness plan. And so I'll invite Lisa Hannon Danner up. And again, this was a board identified and recognized priority from last year. And so I know Lisa's done some great work, and she's going to share some of the future plans with us tonight.
I'm tempted to say good morning, Board President Buena, but I will say good evening. Members of the board, Superintendent Van Schack, and Cabinet, I'm Lisa Hannon and Danner, the Wellness Coordinator, and it is a pleasure to be here this evening to share with you the wellness plan to support mental health and social emotional learning. In December of 2021, which was almost 1 year ago, the U.S. Surgeon General issued an advisory calling for systemic changes in how mental health challenges in children and youth are addressed. He described these challenges as real and widespread, but treatable and often preventable. Studies conducted prior to the pandemic show that by the age of 18, 1 in 5 youth will experience a mental health challenge. 50% of all mental health disorders begin by the age of 14, and 75% by the mid to late 20s. And these are mental health disorders across the lifespan, not youth mental health disorders. We also know with more recent data that the average time from the onset of a mental health disorder to treatment is 11 years. Data we collect in our school district using multiple measures, which Mr. Hart just reviewed, suggest that the mental health challenges among children and youth, the anxiety, the depression, they're not just a national problem, it's a local problem as well. The research is pretty clear. Unrecognized and untreated mental health conditions can affect a student's ability to learn, to grow, and develop. Addressing the mental health and wellness needs of young people at this unprecedented time in our history will require systemic changes. So the National Association of School Psychologists, as well as the U.S. Surgeon General, have put forth some recommendations. These include supporting the sense of belonging at school, promoting resilience, developing social emotional learning skills, training staff and parents in how to recognize and respond to a mental health challenge. So taking all of that into account, we've developed a wellness plan to support our students at this very unique time in our history. It's a multi-tiered model that fits within our district's MTSS framework for success. And for the rest of my report, I'd just like to highlight some of the programs and the interventions and the activities that are part of the wellness plan, some of which are already a part of our practice. So in 2018, we began to implement PBIS. PBIS is a school-wide plan that recognizes positive behaviors and really supports creating that positive, safe, and affirming school environment. And all 18 of our school sites are at some phase in implementing PBIS. To train adults to recognize and respond to mental health challenges, which are part of the recommendations, we offer youth mental health first aid. So youth mental health first aid is a program that trains adults to recognize and respond to mental health challenges in youth. Since January of 2019, we have trained over 600 staff and parents in youth mental health first aid. And it's a 3-year certification program. And so we're at the point now of beginning to recertify staff and parents. We've also been training students at Livermore High in teen mental health first aid, which teaches 10th through 12th graders how to recognize and respond to a mental health challenge in peers. And our plan is to expand to the other high schools. To provide a continuum of mental health supports and really promote access to care. In 2019, we launched our mental health website, and it includes information on mental health protective factors, mental health challenges, information on our local mental health partners. It includes the new 988 suicide lifeline, and a brand new feature that we've released is our mental health for students by students page. And so we have a lot of mental health tips. You can see there on the slide. We have how to take a brave breath, which one of our Livermore High culture keepers, who's a worker in the Wellness Center, is teaching elementary school students how to practice deep breathing. As was mentioned in the previous report, the Kid Connection in its 31st year continues to provide Tier 2 small groups to support the social and emotional learning of elementary age students. Certainly supports that sense of belonging, promotes resilience, and in the Kid Connection, students are developing their social emotional learning skills. We see 500 plus students a year in Kid Connection across the district. Just prior to the pandemic, we had begun staff development at a handful of schools on trauma-informed practices, and we're continuing to provide training in that area. Trauma-informed classrooms, schools provide places where students can build relationships, create connections with adults and with peers. They're learning social emotional learning skills. And trauma-informed schools really focus on that time in the classroom as opposed to time out of the classroom. Trauma-informed practices are at a Tier 1 level, and they're best practices for all students, so all students can really benefit from these. To further promote a sense of belonging, promote resiliency, and continue those trauma-informed practices in classrooms, we're working to set up calming corners in classrooms. And this is a place where within the classroom, so students are not needing to go out of the classroom in order to regulate their behavior, to practice those social emotional learning skills. They can actually stay in the classroom to do that. And that is also a Tier 1 program. So to create the safe, affirming, positive school environments in which students feel connected, we're going to be expanding and maintaining wellness centers at our K-8 middle and high school campuses. Wellness centers provide a space where students can go and learn and practice regulating their emotions. They can get connected with mental health resources. They can get involved in various mental health awareness campaigns and activities. And here you see a picture of East Avenue's Wellness Center, which had a grand reopening this fall in their new administration building. And if you have a chance to stop by there, it really is quite an amazing environment that has been created there. In expanding the wellness centers at additional sites, we're going to be following, as did East Avenue, the state-of-the-art wellness center model that was developed by Zach Radicke, the mental health counselor at Livermore High. He developed their wellness center during the pandemic, and it was available to students when they returned to in-person learning, and it has now expanded to 2 classrooms, 2 full-size classrooms, so it truly is state-of-the-art. As part of our PBIS work, we're going to be providing professional development on restorative practices, really focusing on dealing in a positive way with conflict that arises and building and repairing relationships and helping students to develop that sense of responsibility and their decision-making skills. So recent data indicates that students are 6 times more likely to access mental health services if they're offered on school campuses. And the wellness plan that we've developed includes staffing counselors at our elementary schools. So we are the only district in the Tri-Valley that does not have counselors at the elementary schools. And actually, most districts in the Bay Area do. And so we really want to focus on building the elementary or a elementary school counselor program. The Surgeon General recommends that school districts expand the mental health workforce, and so we can certainly do that by adding these elementary counselors. We're building our relationships with local colleges and universities that have counseling programs, training school counselors, and so we would like to increase the number of interns that we have and build our own career pipeline for elementary school counselors, hopefully leading to employment in our district. The plan also includes expanding the school-based counseling services that outside agencies such as Horizons provide on our campuses. And lastly, the Surgeon General's recommendations include supporting the mental health of all school personnel. So our mental health website does include information for our employees. We've recently conducted a survey of staff to find out what type of wellness activities they'd likely participate in. And so we are going to be offering some wellness activities such as after-school yoga classes, and you'll see the number one thing that our staff wants is an on-site massage therapist. So, but that might be something that, you know, maybe a PTA group could offer in a staff room one day. So anyways, we're looking at all of those options and including the staff in this wellness plan as well. So that concludes my report.
Well, thank you very much, Doctor. And we have no comment cards from the public, so we'll close public comment. And we'll start with Trustee Prusso.
I don't have any questions. I just want to say thank you for coming and for your efforts. I've been on the Health and Wellness Committee with you now for 4 years. And so I've been watching you work from behind the scenes, and just am amazed at how I feel like in the 4 years since I've been on the board, how much this has come to light, not just as an importance in our district, but in the country, possibly in the world, and how I feel like we were a little bit ahead of the game because of the work that you've done. So thank you. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Prusso. Trustee Wong?
It was said at our board workshop last week that with the pandemic, all of our students now have one adverse childhood experience. And so the fact that you've been here doing this work since before the pandemic has really given us a head start on addressing this problem. So I really appreciate that. So that's all I'm going to say. Just thank you for helping us get a head start on this.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Wong. Trustee Guzman?
It's another thank you. Both my children at some point have experienced a service provided by the school district. I don't think at that time either one of them could articulate they were seeking mental health services, but in the time here, just the language that they're now able to use to express their feelings has improved or has increased greatly. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I know that there's been an uptick. Just I've done the same thing at the same spot with the same demographic of kids for almost 2 decades. And in the last couple of years, you can really see it. And the fact that we're ahead of the game, I know that's beyond the opinion of just us, because I know you've worked with our consultant in DC who has a national perspective, and yours is at the top of the game nationally. And so we're extraordinarily fortunate to have you, your expertise, the foresight here working for our kids. And so I really, really appreciate that. You're doing a great job, Doc.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. We're good?
All right, thank you, President Bueno. Next up will be the approval of the school plans for student achievement, and that will be handled by Assistant Superintendent Melissa Thiede.
Well, that is a tough act to follow, for sure. So yes, I am here this evening. Sorry, let me just get this slideshow going here. So the school plans for student achievement are presented annually for board approval. And they're developed to improve academic performance for all students, but particularly those who are underserved or require additional opportunity for, they're demonstrating some sort of an opportunity gap. It's a collaborative process that's done in collaboration with parents and the staff at the school site. These are aligned to our LCAP, and it has the same 3 goals that our LCAP has. The first of which is to increase percentage of students who have the skill and knowledge to graduate from high school, college, and career ready. And you can see some of the focus areas listed there. Goal number 2, again, the same as the LCAP, is to provide an engaging, clean, healthy, and physically and emotionally safe environment to support learning at the highest levels. Again, highlighting some of what Lisa just shared with us. SIPSA and LCAP goal number 3 is to enhance parent and community engagement and communication. And here's a couple of the areas that are highlighted within the SIPSAs, or the school plans for student achievement. These plans were shared with you just last week, and so I know you have a very good understanding of what those are. The principals did work in teams to talk about some common trends, some strategies, and their plans moving forward. And as you're aware, comments and feedback from peers, the superintendent, you, the board members, as well as other district administrators was shared at that time. I do want to point out that some of the questions that were asked earlier regarding more in-depth data points for the CASP performance can be found within the SIPSA for each individual school site. That data is broken down to a very detailed level within those school plans. And so the recommendation of our superintendent is to approve the school plans for student achievement for 2022-23 for the schools listed herein. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Any questions? We have no comment cards on this. We'll close the public comment. And I take any questions or comments before we entertain a motion. None? Trustee White?
Well, as you all know, I missed the presentations. I was on a family wedding trip, so I needed to be there and not here. And I do regret this mightily. There's a CSBA officer who always said that the audit committee was, and she's, in her words, the funnest committee of CSBA. And I would suggest we don't have an audit committee. We have this. When the principals present to the board members, that indeed is the funnest committee in CSBA and the funnest committee in Livermore. So I regret I wasn't there, but I had a mentor one time who said, if you approve the process, you have to approve the outcome. And this outcome has been vetted by more people than you can imagine, so there's nothing to do but approve. I move that we approve the site council plans for student achievement.
I'll second.
We have a motion in support of the superintendent's recommendation by Trustee White, and that has been seconded by Trustee Pruso. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, Madam Clerk, if you'd call the roll.
Trustee Wong?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Trustee White?
Aye.
Trustee Guzman?
Aye.
President Bueno?
Aye. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
So our final item this evening from the discussion action items is nominations for the 2023 School Board Association Delegate Assembly. So this is CSBA. each year. School boards in California, they give us the opportunity to elect representatives to the delegate assembly, and that is a 2-year term. And we've discussed this at prior meetings. There was not interest at that time in nomination, but I thought I'd bring that back one more time to see if there is interest in nomination from this group for that assembly.
Okay. And there's not going to be a superintendent's recommendation or anything on this. There's going to be just a point of discussion. So if there's nothing, then.
You're not.
Okay.
Well, I think I will be happy to speak to the director of our Region 7 and see if he knows of any interest district-wide. We would just be 7B, that would be Alameda County, and see who else might be running and see if he will have an opportunity to appoint people also.
Okay. Well, it sounds like we'll just leave that one live.
We'll move
Not
on.
really table it, it'll go by, so it's just going
If
to expire.
there's no interest, then we
Correct.
just let it pass.
We'll just move past. All right. Thank you for putting it on the agenda. And we'll move into our consent items. I believe there's 18 of them this evening, beginning with 11.2 and ending with 11.19. And if no member wants, we have no cards. If no member would like to pull any, I'd entertain a motion to move them in their entirety.
President White, I move that we approve consent items 11.2 through 11.19
Yes.
in their entirety.
I second that.
I missed it. Is that right? Okay.
Me.
There's no direction here. I'm hitting off the mics. Okay. We have a motion by trustee Prusso, and that has been seconded by trustee Guzman. Any discussion on the motion? Madam Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Myself, aye. Trustee Guzman.
Aye.
Trustee White.
Aye.
Trustee Wong.
Aye.
President Bueno.
Aye. The motion passes unanimously. And then consent resos, there are 6. And they are 21 through 26 with the current calendar year. If we'd like
Mr. President, I move that we pass Resolution 021-2223 through 026-2223 in their entirety.
I second that.
Thank you. I got you. Motion is by trustee Wong, and it's been seconded by trustee Guzman. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'd call, please.
Trustee Guzman.
Aye.
Trustee White.
Aye.
Myself, aye. Trustee Wong.
Aye.
President Bueno.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And we have none that were removed for separate discussion. So we'll begin with trustee Wong tonight on board member reports.
Well, since our last meeting, I think every one of my committees has met, but I won't go into summaries of each of those. I will say one thing quickly. The Community Engagement Committee met and presented a draft of the parent handbook, and it's amazing. It's very comprehensive, but clear, simple, really great. So I'm excited for that to go out into the world. We also had 2 board workshops, and I just want to thank all the staff for the preparation and time that goes into that, including the SIPSA, which we just approved. And those are my favorite meetings all year, and I know incredible amount of work goes into that. So thanks to all the staff and the district staff and our superintendent. I don't think Trustee Pearson and I have had a chance to thank Principal Mounier at Smith for showing us around at Universal Access Time at Smith. It was really great. We learned a lot. Super useful to see that in action. I want to thank all the parents and the Parent Center coordinators at the schools who put together amazing Dia de los Muertos celebrations. I went to the one at Junction. And it's just amazing what they put together, just a huge festival right at school and for the whole community, as well as the parents and students there. And in relation to that, tomorrow night, Junction is having a holiday boutique from 5 to 8 at their school. Livermore Learns at 7 o'clock tomorrow night is on how to get hired at LVJUSD, so make sure you tune into that. And then And of course, tutoring at Livermore High School will be in the Wellness Center tomorrow instead of the library because they're doing textbook returns. But come see us so we're not just sitting there staring at each other. And then happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Thank you very much. Trustee Pruso.
I'll try to make this short because I know it's late. But I did, as Trustee Wong said, we did get to spend some time at Smith with Principal Meunier, and it was really grateful for his time. I think he took half the day probably with us, and for the teachers, we were able to go and observe the universal access time, which I think is really important, and hopefully we're going to show next year how much help it is. Also, all the other things that Trustee Wong mentioned, also the Health and Wellness Committee met, and for the first time in 2 years, our discussion was not about COVID, but was about discussion about rewriting the food policy for bringing food in from outside for parties, which I feel like we're back to normal when we can discuss that. So you policy committee people can look forward to that, and we'll try to keep the too much sugar out of the classrooms. So that's it.
Thank you very much. Trustee Guzman.
Yes, I attended the PCIC meeting, and it's always great to hear what the creativity among parents. I'm not that parent. I'm the parent that just makes sure my kid is fed and sleeps well. And but to hear the creativity among all the parents and what they're able to do is fascinating. Also, just the principal reports that we saw at the special board meeting, and then I was asked to. So that will be upcoming next month. I was asked to attend Livermore High School Spanish class for Spanish speakers. So I'm looking forward to doing that, and just the topic was civic engagement. So I have to brush up on that vocabulary, but I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you very much. I went to a couple meetings and did a few other things, and I'm going to forego any update for myself. I believe we were coming out of the election cycle, and I wanted to thank Mrs. White. You've been on the board for 32 years.
Mm-hmm.
And while we await the certification, I mean, it appears apparent that you won't be rejoining us. And so I just want to thank you for your 32 years on the board, and then give you the last word.
My last word is not very profound at this point. We don't need a profundity at 10:53. And I do look forward to the policy and the profile committee meetings this week and get my last oar in the water. Thank you.
Thank you. With no further business, we will adjourn at 22:53. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I was going right.
You get so excited.
I said last word.
I'm gonna let you go. We'll end it there. I'll talk next time. I just wanted to express, with Thanksgiving coming, I mean, this is an opportunity for us to count our blessings, and I just wanted to count among them the work of the folks in this district. There are so many people putting in so many long hours, and I think we sometimes focus on things, but I think this is an opportunity for us to focus on people. And we have a number of people who make incredible impacts, and I just want to, during this Thanksgiving season, I want to be thankful for the folks that we have the opportunity to work with, including the folks in this room. It's amazing, and we're doing good work, and I'm proud of it, and again, so very thankful.
Thank you very much. Well, I'll let you adjourn. It's your last meeting. Thank you very much.